Hello everyone, welcome to What If Issei was forced to carry the legacy of Lucifer's Bloodline Part 1. Before we start, please go support BlackRedZX for writing that awesome fanfic. This is the translated version I made. There will be some mistake in character's gender, but of course Issei is a male. Due to unexpected events, Issei will be forced not only to enter the supernatural world, but to assume a position that was his since birth. And all thanks to the fact that from one day to the next he found out that he was a son of Lucifer, which made him the only heir of Lucifer. Prologue. The day was normal like any other for the brunette. He had gone to school like every other day. I have caused the same problems as always by spying on the girls from the kendo club. I have attended the same classes as every day. Everything was normal, nothing pointed to anything interesting happening. But there he was standing in the middle of a bridge looking at the two women in front of him surprised. The reason? It was because one of them had declared her love for him moments before, and the other had appeared a moment later, where she instantly stood in front of him, turning her back to him. Something that at first confused him, as well as the one who had declared her love for him, who looked strangely at the woman. Ito Issei-san, do you know her? Issei, no, that's what I was going to ask you. He answered the girl called Amano Yuma. She only looked even more strangely at the woman in front of him, who simply observed her as if analyzing her carefully. I apologize for my rudeness, Issei-sama. Issei, wait, Sama? He responded in surprise while the girl opened her eyes in surprise, as she seemed to have finally recognized the woman in front of her, causing great fear upon seeing her, so much so that she took a couple of steps back, bewildering the brunette even more. Issei, Yuma-chan? Do you know her? Yuma, you are. Completely ignoring Issei's question, the girl backed away further. As if there was someone extremely dangerous right in front of her, something that left the brunette more and more bewildered. I see, so my assumptions were correct. Hearing her words, Yuma's face lost color, because she knew how dangerous the woman in front of her was to the point that she was thinking about how to escape at that moment. I'll tell you this once, fallen one, if you don't want to disappear, get out of this place. At those words Yuma just took a step back before running away in terror from the place, leaving Issei more confused than he currently was. Issei, wait Yuma. Issei-sama, please don't chase that fallen angel. Issei, fallen angel? What are you talking about? Rather, who are you? And why did you call me by Sama? True, excuse my delay, my name is Gabriel Lucifuge. I am a member of the extinct Lucifuge family, which was loyal to Lord Lucifer his father. Issei, huh? It was the only thing he could say at Gabriel's sudden words, his father? Lucifer? Lucifuge family? Those and more questions formed as he looked at the woman dressed as a maid in front of him, who even if he was confused he could say that she was a beauty. But he still didn't understand a word of what Gabriel had said. He even doubted for a moment that he was the one she was looking for. Issei, I don't know what you mean by that, but I think you're confused. I'm just an ordinary boy, I'm not Lucifer's son, if he's even real, but... Gabriel, no, you are the direct son of Lucifer, Issei-sama. There is no doubt about it, but before continuing we must move to another place, where the truth will be shown. At the end of those words, a silver magic circle formed beneath them both, which surprised the brunette, who didn't have time to say anything before a light covered them, causing him to close his eyes for a moment before opening them, where he saw how the surroundings had changed, since they were in a hallway where there was barely any light. Gabriel, please follow me, all your questions will be answered. Issei, huh? Oh, okay. He answered as he followed Gabriel's silhouette into the darkness, where she led him to a metal door. He only touched it with his palm for a few seconds before opening it, which made him close his eyes slightly due to the light inside the place. Where looking better I realized that it was some kind of laboratory, which was quite messy since there were several sheets on the floor, as well as a couple of boxes full of jars, which were also visible on the shelves. Issei, where? Gabriel, is that you? A somewhat old voice spoke that caught his attention, so he turned his gaze seeing a man standing with his back turned holding several leaves in his hands. He turned to see them, but instantly his gaze focused on him, causing a chill in the brown-haired boy. I can't believe it, you actually found it. Grafia, it took me 6 years, but I found it. Issei, you're getting confused. I'm not the one you're looking for. He said before realizing that right in front of him was that man, who seemed to be around 40 years old due to his aura. But what surprised him was that without saying anything, the man had shamelessly grabbed his face while moving it from side to side, checking something. Oh, this is very interesting. You certainly have a resemblance to Lord Lucifer, but you look more like Lady Lilith because of your features. He said, surprised while still shaking Issei's face without shame, who did not understand what was happening at that moment, and why they called him the son of Lucifer. Grafia, certainly, that's why I brought it, for the test. True test. Issei, could you tell me what's going on? And who are you? It's true that I haven't introduced myself yet. I'm Heredero Nibirius, descendant of Lucifer, only I'm not from a direct branch like you. He said as he let Issei go for a moment before pushing him near a table, where there was some sort of mini capsule, which lit up the moment Issei approached, which surprised Heredero upon seeing it before he said with a smile. Heredero, it really is, I don't believe it, we found Lord Lucifer's lost son. Grafia, I knew it. He said as he gave a weak sigh of relief, while Heredero remained thoughtful as he looked at the capsule on the table, leaving the brunette more confused, since he did not understand why it was there, and why they called him the son of Lucifer. Issei, will you tell me why I'm here or not? And what is this about son of Lucifer? I am Heredero Issei, son of Miki and Gora Heredero. Heredero, error, you are the son of A. Issei, damn it, I'm not Lucifer's son. Heredero, technically you are, and I'll explain it to you now. At that, Issei simply watched a man named Heredero search for something among the piles of papers on the tables, which took a few seconds to find a somewhat old book, which he shook off the traces of dust. Heredero, first of all you must know that the supernatural exists, and that we are demons. Issei, sure, it's as believable as me being the son of Lucifer. He said with clear sarcasm before he took a couple of steps back as he saw a pair of bat wings come out of the backs of both of them, something that surprised Issei. While Heredero was looking for something in the book, and the moment he found it he showed it to Issei. Heredero, do you know what this is? Issei, torn leaves? Heredero, exactly, pages turned from Lord Lucifer's diary. You see, it's been a long time since Lord Lucifer died and he left behind this diary that has served me for many things, which is not relevant now, but I came across this part where you can clearly see that the pages were turned out. Issei, I understand. Heredero, which I thought were lost a long time ago, but a few years ago, while investigating one of Lucifer's old bases, I came across a small box that belonged to Lady Lilith, in which were the missing pages of the diary. Issei, and then? Heredero, in the leaves, Lord Lucifer spoke of a second son, one just like Rias of Imsama was born from Lady Lilith's womb, who in every way exceeded Lord Lucifer's expectations, due to one reason alone. Issei, which one is it? Heredero, that the power of that child was too great, which according to Lord Lucifer surpassed everything he had seen until now, even his power surpassed that of his brother, something that surprised Lord Lucifer, but also terrified him since that power was not normal at all. So he decided to take advantage of it, and together with the other Maos using the child's aura they decided, or rather created 12 weapons, which were called Mailbreak. Issei, interesting. Heredero, that's right, but the power of the Mailbreak amazed them as well as terrified them, because they were too violent and bloodthirsty. That's why they sealed them and hid them, which also told them that you would be just like them when you grew up, so that's why they decided to kill you. Issei, oh. Heredero, something Lady Lilith did not agree with, so Lord Lucifer took an artifact he had originally created for his son Rias of Imsama, which he modified so that he could keep you safe until you were ready, as the artifact had the function of reducing your aura so that in the future it would be possible to control you. Issei, impressive. Zamora, exactly, but when they were going to hide you, a great battle took place in which Lord Lucifer perished, so in a last act of bravery Lady Lilith asked that the capsule containing you be transferred to one of the bases on Earth, a place that was abandoned sometime after the war. Issei, right? Heredero, Until about 10 years ago we had no idea that you existed until we. Grafia Zearoma. He spoke, interrupting the demon, who turned doubtfully towards the maid, who had a calm face, so he asked. Zearoma, what? Grafia, he doesn't believe you at all. He said as Zearoma finally noticed Issei's expressionless face, which easily said that he didn't believe anything he was telling him. Zearoma, oh, I guess it's not easy to understand this. Issei, that's right, they convinced me that they are demons with the wings that they both used, but I still don't believe that I am the son of Lucifer. He said as both devils just looked at each other before nodding, as if they had expected this result. Which surprised Issei a little when he saw it, given that Zearoma took something from a table and gave it to the brunette. Zearoma, well, I guess you won't believe us until we give you something to prove what we're saying, so take this and read it out loud. Issei, okay, it says here, adoption request. Adoptive parents Goro and Miki Hayato. Adopted child without a subsequent name will be called Issei Hayato from today onwards. Grafia, this was also on the record. The moment he said that, he extended his hand to the brunette, who saw a somewhat old photo he took. Seeing his two youngest parents holding a silver-haired child in their hands with happiness. And right at the bottom of the photograph were written a couple of words. Issei, Hayato family, this it can't be true, it's fake. It has to be fake, right? I don't have silver hair. She asked, hoping to be told it was a joke, but the serious faces of both demons answered her question. While Grafia took something else out of the leaves she was holding, which she extended to the brunette, who took it with fear. Grafia, we're not lying to you. I also found this in the adoption records document from 16 years ago, including the photo. The document I gave you had another photo. As he had said, the document in his hand showed a rather old capsule on the outside, but inside it was the opposite. Even under the photo there were other words, something that surprised the boy even more. Issei, place where Issei Hayato was found. Issei found it hard to believe what he was reading, as he was sure that finding a baby in abandoned ruins was something that would cause a scandal, as well as an investigation into why it was there. But until this day there was no news of that he would remember. Grafia, from what we investigated, they left you in an orphanage, so the official story in all records is that you were left in an orphanage where the Hayato arrived sometime later to adopt you. Zearama, and if you want more proof, ask your adoptive parents personally. At those words, Grafia created another magic circle that transported the three of them in front of the Hayato resistance, which surprised Issei a little when he saw it before examining the door of his house, where he quickly entered, where he walked to the living room, seeing his parents talking. His father was reading the newspaper in the living room, while his mother was in the kitchen, and upon noticing the arrival of the brown-haired boy they smiled, which for some reason hurt Issei when he saw him. Miki, Issei? It's weird to see you home so early. Did it happen? Miki's smile froze as she saw the two people behind her, son, and the reason for that had been the color of Grafia's hair. She only saw the two parents as well as Zearoma, who had followed them into their house, where both Hayato were just surprised. Miki, Issei, who are you? Issei, first of all tell me one thing, is this real? Yes or no? Hearing those words, they both just looked at each other before approaching their son with a little fear, where Miki's hand held the sheet of paper as well as the photo. As soon as she saw what both things were about, tears unexpectedly began to fall from her eyes, while Gora let out a heavy sigh. Issei, so it's true I'm not his biological son. Miki, upon hearing that, just burst into tears while Gora hugged her, and as she was crying, it was only silently before she responded. Gora, hiding it is pointless, so I'll be honest, Issei, as you said, you are not our biological son. Chapter 1, The True Heir of Lucifer. Issei looked at his parents, in surprise, even doubting what he just heard, and seeing Miki's tears as well as Gora's, he knew it wasn't them. They were telling the truth, something that made him take a couple of steps back before being held by Zearama. Issei, I see. Issei's next words weren't heard because they were stuck in his throat and couldn't come out. He felt sadness filling his insides. He wanted to get out and scream, to vent. But seeing Miki's tears, he couldn't do it, so he remained silent before Gora spoke again. Gora, Issei, we couldn't have a child of our own, and when they told us that the third one died the moment he was born, we broke down, so much so that we decided not to try to have another one. Gora's words were full of sadness and pain. Just saying them was difficult for him to the point that he had to take a breath to continue everything without letting go of Mickey, who was still crying in his arms. Gora, we suffered so much that some old friends we had came to visit us, and they took us on a trip all over abroad. We visited different kinds of places, and in one of their places we found you. Issei, did they find me? Goro, while we were traveling, one of them asked us if we still wanted to be parents, why not adopt a child. At first we refused, but after thinking about it, we decided to give it a chance. Mickey, in 1 week we visited more than one orphanage, but we didn't feel like we were ready yet, she said as she wiped her tears for a moment as she looked at Issei, who was still being held by Zairama. Mickey, or so we thought until they took us to an orphanage in the back of a city. Goro, same orphanage that was about to close and send the children to the other orphanages we visited, that's where we found you, they said as they looked at the photo in Mickey's hands, who couldn't help but smile at seeing Issei as a baby again. Mickey, you were sleeping peacefully in the wooden crib. You looked as cute as you were helpless. Watching you sleep was the most peaceful moment of my life. Issei. Mickey, a moment that I could never forget. You were sleeping peacefully, and without realizing it I caressed your cheek softly. It was when you opened your eyes, you looked at us with curiosity, the most tender curiosity I had ever seen, and without expecting it you smiled. Goro, it was like something that was taken from us came back to us. The feeling of being complete only increased. Then we understood. Mickey, you were the son we would like to have, and without even hesitating we adopted you. Goro, they didn't tell us about your origin, nor were we interested. All we thought about was that our family was complete. Issei simply remained silent. Even after hearing the story he felt each of his emotions in chaos, each of them causing a great pain in his chest, one that only increased. Issei, but my hair is brown, not silver. Mickey couldn't help but smile when she heard that, as if a happy memory had come to mind. Mickey, I remember when you were 1 year old, you used to play with my hair as if it was the most interesting thing, and the moment I got distracted for just a moment, your hair turned brown. In an instant it stopped being silver. Goro, it was when we knew you were special, we thought about taking you to a doctor, but in the end we just let it go. You grew up to be a splendid child. Watching you grow was the greatest privilege of my life. Mickey, you calling me Oka-san made me forget all the pain I had in my heart. You were the light that my life needed. Issei, even if we weren't united by blood, our feelings were. Every word that came out of the Hyeda's mouth only caused even more sadness in Issei's heart. He didn't understand it. His thoughts were complete chaos. So without saying anything, he got out of Zairama's hold before leaving through the door, leaving both Hyedas surprised. Mickey, Issei, wait. She screamed, trying to follow the boy, or that had been her intention, but Zairama's arm had stopped her. So she looked at the man in surprise, who only looked at her before saying, Zairama, he needs to be alone. If he goes after him now, it will make things worse. Mickey, I can't leave him alone. Zairama, it won't be. Grafia, go, I will explain things here, he said as the maid nodded before calmly leaving the house, leaving the couple with Zairama. On the other hand, Issei ran through the streets shedding tears. His only thought was to run, flee, escape. He wanted it all to be a dream. A dream from which he would wake up, one from which he longed to wake up, but he knew consciously that it was not, that what happened was real. So real that he could not afford to escape. He knew it, and yet he did not stop, but continued running until he reached a park where he stopped right in front of the fountain. Where he didn't care if one or more people saw him, he screamed. From the bottom of his heart he let out all his pain. He didn't hold back and let it all out. It didn't matter if anyone saw him, he just wanted to release all the pain he had inside his chest. Why? It was the only question that appeared in his mind. Why? He didn't understand why this was happening to him. This morning was supposed to be a normal day like any other. He didn't think he would find out that his parents were others and that those who had taken care of him as a child were fake. Issei, am I really the son of Lucifer? It had already been confirmed. He was not the biological son of the Hyedu, but the son of Lucifer. Something that he would never believe under normal circumstances, which did not apply now. There was more evidence that confirmed it. He was really the legitimate son of Lucifer, who made him the prince of the underworld, and with his father dead as his mother, it meant that he should take his father's place, a place that corresponded to him since birth, to be the new ruler of the underworld. "Why are you crying?" It was the question that reached his ears, so he looked up, seeing the light of the sunset as well as black feathers falling, and standing in front of him was a redhead looking into his eyes with curiosity. "Issei, Rias-senpai?" he said, surprised seeing the redhead standing in front of him, who smiled before extending her hand, something that left the brunette surprised. "Rias, come on, you shouldn't be on the floor." His words surprised the brunette, who hesitated for a moment, and accepted Rias' hand, which helped him stand up. And without him expecting it, she gently wiped the tears from her cheeks with her hands, an action that left the boy surprised. "Rias, you shouldn't cry in a place like that, you might cause some misunderstanding." Issei simply stared at Rias' face in surprise. She just kept wiping away her tears. They had never spoken before, they even only met eyes for a moment that morning. "Issei, I'm sorry." "Rias, it doesn't matter, luckily there's no one here besides the two of us." If it weren't for Rias' words, he wouldn't have noticed that they were the only ones in that park. Something that left the brunette confused when he noticed it, since normally there would be people walking around, but they were the only ones in the place, not to mention the black feathers scattered almost everywhere. "Rias, well? Why were you crying?" "Issei, huh?" "Rias, I may be a bit nosy, but if you need me to listen to you, I will." Issei just looked at the redhead with some surprise, since under normal circumstances he couldn't talk to her like he was doing now. He still felt all the pain filling his chest, and if talking about it helped to release some of the pain, he didn't see why he would reject her help. "Issei, it's a long story." "Rias, I'll listen to you," he responded with a smile, bringing a weak smile to Issei, who was surprised to see that he could smile even with the pain. And before he knew it, he was sitting at the fountain with Rias, who listened to every word of Issei without saying anything. All of this, if they noticed, not far away behind a tree was Gabriel watching everything. "Rias, it must have been hard for you." "Issei, it is, I don't know what to think or do right now," he replied after telling him part of what happened. Of course, Issei didn't say anything related to him being Lucifer's son. After all, he doubted that Rias would believe that, so the story was that his parents weren't Lucifer's son but that they had adopted him, and those who were really his parents had died. "Rias, I can't imagine what you're feeling right now." "Issei, I don't even know, I just know that my feelings are a complete mess." "Rias, I would be surprised if it wasn't like that, but if until now you lived with your adoptive parents, who were your real parents?" "Issei, I'm not sure, I only know that they were the owners of great things, that many depended on them, and if that's really the case, everything that was theirs will belong to me if I accept." "Rias, will you accept it? If they really belong to your parents, then as their son you are the heir of what they had, it is your right to take it." "Issei, what if someone else already did it? Maybe in these years someone or some people have taken everything that belonged to my parents," she said as Rias watched Issei silently, still not noticing the gaze on them. Of course, Gabriel would have wanted to talk to Issei, but seeing how Rias accompanied him, she decided not to intervene in the conversation that was taking place unless it was necessary. "Gabriel, if Issei-sama decides to take his rightful place, we'll have a long way to go, but if he doesn't, we have no choice but to protect him until he decides to accept it." She depended on Issei's decision. Her family had served Lucifer on more than one occasion, but with what happened in the Civil War, it left the entire Lucifuge family extinct, where she and her younger brother were the only survivors, who disappeared after the war, and if it weren't for Zairama finding her when she was fleeing from the devils, she would have died. "Gabriel, my injuries were severe at the time. Ejuka certainly did not hold back his power at that time," she thought to herself. Before she completely left the battle at that time, she had a confrontation with the one who now occupied the position of Mao Beelzebub, who, even if they were friends in the past, did not show even a degree of guilt in leaving her seriously injured. "Gabriel, Falbium, Seraphal, Ajuka and Serzex, if Issei-sama accepts his inheritance at some point, he will have to fight against all four of them. She knew firsthand how strong those four were, having fought against one of them on more than one occasion. So she was prepared to face them again if necessary. Although she currently didn't know if her powers were the same as before, she had grown stronger over all these years thanks to Zeirama. So she didn't know if her current level was still the same. Grafia. No matter what happens, whatever Issei-sama's decision is, I will protect him even if it costs me my life. She was determined. She was going to support the true leader of the underworld with her life if necessary. But she knew that Issei was hesitating about what to do. He had too many doubts that he couldn't answer on his own. Pointing out that he wouldn't accept her inheritance, at least not now that his heart had too many doubts, or so she believed. Rias, then get it back. If someone took what belonged to your parents, you simply have to get it back no matter the cost. It belongs to you and no one can change it. Issei, get it back? Rias, that's right. Even if the ones who raised you are not your real parents, they are the family you have now. They may not be related by blood, but they are related by the feelings they have for each other. They had been the same words Mickey had told him earlier, and hearing them again caused a fog to clear inside him that he had been hiding what he should have seen all along. Issei, I feel like an idiot. It was so clear that I couldn't see it. Rias, you just needed a little push in the right direction. Issei, thank you. Rias, why? Issei, for listening. He replied as he looked at her, something that Rias imitated before smiling. Where the brunette observed before noticing that night was already falling, since the lights of the park began to turn on. Rias, no need to thank me, I was just helping my kohai. Issei, still, thank you. I think if it wasn't for your words, it would have taken me longer to see it. Rias, I just gave you a push, you did the rest yourself. Issei, maybe I guess I should go back, I know what I have to do now. He said before getting up from his place, while Rias did the same when she saw that Issei was already feeling better. Rias, I'm glad I helped you, I wish you luck. Issei just smiled as he watched the redhead walk away from him, where seeing how she walked away he sighed before saying loudly enough, seeing that there was a great distance. Issei, Rias-senpai, if you don't mind, could we talk again? Hearing his scream, Rias turned her gaze to the brunette in surprise, before putting on a thoughtful face for a moment, and saying with a smile. Rias, I'm usually busy, but if the opportunity arises I'd like to have another chat with you. Once Rias shouted that, she continued on her way, leaving the brunette alone in the park with a smile. While she left the park, where a brunette was waiting for her with a smile, the same brunette that all of Ko's students would recognize, one of the two ones, Sama, Akeno Himejima. Akeno, Era looks like you made a friend. Rias, I think he's more of a younger brother. She answered as she was followed by the brunette, walking away from the park where Issei was looking at the fountain meditating. She knew that the decision she would make at that moment would change her life. Issei, Grafia, are you here? He spoke as the maid appeared from one moment to the next behind him, something that Issei did not see, where without making another movement he responded. Grafia, yes, I am Issei-sama. Issei, well, now that I know the truth behind my birth and origin, I no longer have any doubts that I am the son of Lucifer. Grafia, so what will you do? Are you going to follow Rias Gremeri's advice? Grafia's question made the brunette turn her gaze towards her, something that surprised her. After all, Issei's gaze made her shudder, something she understood instantly. It wasn't because he was stronger than her, but it was her demon genes telling her that in front of her was the one she could never challenge. And seeing the silver glow in her eyes made her quickly lower her head as she knelt down. Issei, Grafia, I'm going to recover everything that once belonged to my parents. Everything they had will belong to me. That's why I ask you now, will you be faithful to the Heir of Lucifer? With those words Issei extended his hand towards the maid, waiting. The question was simple. Answering it was a yes or a no, but for the maid on her knees it was the greatest contract of loyalty that existed. Grafia. Rias Gremeri, I am truly grateful to you, because thanks to you, the entire underworld will witness how what was stolen will return to its true owner. It was the happiest thought that he had in his mind since the moment he learned of the existence of the second heir, so without making his new master wait any longer, He raised his head as he accepted Issei's hand. Grafia, I Grafia Lucifuge, at this moment swear my complete loyalty to Issei-sama, the true heir of Lucifer. My life, my soul, my body belong to him from now on. Issei looked at the maid in surprise. The maid's oath was serious and he knew it. She was going to follow it without hesitation. Even if her life was at stake, she would not hesitate, and would give her life for him. Same reason why she could not be indifferent to Grafia's oath. Issei, I the heir of Lucifer, Issei Lucifer, accept your oath of loyalty. From now on your life, your soul, as well as your entire body belong to me. Grafia, yes Lucifer-sama. There was no turning back. He knew, he couldn't regret it. He accepted Grafia's loyalty, and soon he would accept Zairama's. If he wanted to regain what was once his, he had to be strong, stronger than anyone. But that wasn't all. He also had to win the affection of the underworld as well as eliminate those who had taken what was his. Author's note: it is time for me to clarify some things related to the FIC and the canon. 1. The reason for Grafia's loyalty to Lucifer is due to the events in DxD0. Unlike the canon, here her father indoctrinated Grafia in such a way that she will be loyal to Lucifer no matter what happens. 2. Grafia did not end up with Serzex because she did not develop feelings for him due to her loyalty, as well as the events in the Civil War. 3. The mailbreak and simple words are weapons that the ancient Maos created, but did not use due to fear of a rebellion on their part. It was specified that they are capable of facing the gods. 4. Serzex did fall in love with Grafia. It is something that will not change since in the canon he fell in love with her at first sight. 5. The reason why Issei has the boosted gear is because the moment Issei was taken out of the capsule, the system mistook him for a newborn human due to the high suppression of his aura and demonic genes, consequently it gave him the boosted gear. Chapter 2: The Problems of an Heir. Night had fallen, causing the street lights to turn on one after another, places where Issei was walking calmly towards his home. Issei, Grafia, if I am the heir of Lucifer, it means I have no siblings, right? His question surprised the maid walking behind him a little. She knew that sooner or later Issei was going to ask that, so she just gave a weak sigh before saying, Grafia, in fact Issei-sama, you have an older brother, Rise of him Levan Lucifer. As soon as Issei heard that, he stopped before turning his gaze to Grafia, who understood that reaction, so she continued explaining. Grafia, although his older brother should be the one to take the throne of the underworld, he has refused to take the position of Mao. He even said that he was not opposed to Serzex taking his place as one of the 4 Maos of the underworld. Issei, I see then Rise of him has no interest in taking control of the entire underworld. Grafia, that's right, that's why I didn't swear loyalty to Rise of him-sama. I will only be loyal to the Lucifer who rules the underworld. Issei, I see, in that case I have no reason to worry about him, at least for now, which reminds me, am I the only devil in Ko besides the 2 of you? Grafia, in Ko City there are 2 high-class devils occupying the territory. Issei, I see. He replied before continuing on his way, being assured by Grafia, who remained silent before arriving at the entrance of the house, where he entered without hesitation, finding Zairama in the living room sitting reading some pages while his parents were on the sofas in front unconscious. Zairama, they're finally back, so? Did you accept who you are or not? Issei, what happened to Zairama? I just put them to sleep using my magic. After all, this must be kept a secret, at least for now. Issei just sighed before looking at his unconscious adoptive parents on the couch sadly. There were many things he wanted to tell them, but he knew that would put them in danger. Grafia, Issei-sama, what will you do? Right now you don't have enough strength to protect them if something happens. The best thing would be. Issei, I know if I want to keep them safe, it would be better if they stayed away from me as much as possible. Zairama, with that I guess you have already accepted who you are and what having that last name implies. Well, what happens with your adoptive parents depends on your decision. Issei, apart from me I would like for them to stay here with me, but I know that would be dangerous. Zairama, so what will you do? Issei, that's right, can you point out the memories involving me? Zairama, if we can. Issei, well, for now it would be best for you to stay away. Once I'm strong enough, I'll look for you and I'll give you back everything you gave me these years. Zeirama just stared at Issei before nodding and creating a magic circle in his hand, which he pointed at both Heredero for a few seconds before stopping. Zeirama, ready, seal their memories and implant in them the idea of traveling around the world. I will take care of the funds for their trip so they will be fine. Issei nodded weakly as he looked at the couple who had raised him all these years. He knew that the path he was about to take was going to be dangerous if he wasn't careful. They could end up hurt because of him, so this was the best option for the moment, although there were still many things he had to find out. Issei, Grafia, tell me something. Before you said that BlackRedZX took my brother's place perhaps. Grafia, yes, as you might expect, there is a demon occupying the name of Lucifer in the underworld. Issei, so BlackRedZX Lucifer, is he the only Mao or are there more? Zeirama, there are 4 Maos in total in the underworld: BlackRedZX Lucifer, Ajuka Beelzebub, Seraphal Leviathan and Falbium Asmodeus. Issei, if they occupy the positions of Mao it means that. Grafia, yes, the 4 of them got those positions thanks to their achievements in the underworld civil war, where they proved to be powerful. Grafia's tone told him that he couldn't underestimate them. They had been named Maos of the underworld, there had to be a reason for that. Issei, how much? Zeirama, well, tell us how much BlackRedZX and Ajuka were classified as transcendental devils. Issei, transcendental? Grafia, it is a rank that was used by Lord Lucifer to describe Rizavim Sama's strength, which was also used to define what kind of strength you had. Issei, 4 transcendentals. Zeirama, that's right, Rizavim Sama was the first transcendental that existed, the second was you Issei Sama. Grafia, BlackRedZX with Ajuka were the 3rd and 4th transcendentals that were registered. Issei, so, of the 4 of you, who is the strongest? Zeirama, if we put them in ranks it would be BlackRedZX first, Ajuka 2nd, Rizavim 3rd, leaving him in 4th place. Issei, am I the weakest of the 4? Zeirama, for now, he currently does not possess the strength to confront them, so the first step is to regain his full power. With those words Issei just affirmed as he looked at his adoptive parents for the last time. When the sun rose again, Issei looked at the empty streets from his balcony. He couldn't sleep at night. Zeirama had taken his parents, and Grafia was preparing several things in the house. Issei, Lucifer's son, and to think that a day ago he was a normal boy at Ko Academy. Just a day ago he was a normal boy, a boy who had no idea who he really was. He could only adapt to the situation he was in and keep moving forward, so he looked towards the door where he heard the faint knocking of the maid. Grafia, Issei-sama, breakfast is ready. To be honest, he wasn't hungry, but he still wanted to know several things, which could only be answered by Grafia, so he simply returned to his room before going to have breakfast. Noticing Zeirama at the table reading some pages while drinking a cup of coffee, something that reminded him of his parents, instantly. Zeirama, Issei-sama, I hope you could at least rest. Issei, not even a bit they? Zeirama, they are fine, they started their trips abroad, they will be fine. Issei, well, with that settled, all that's left to do is begin. How do I regain my powers? Grafia just left a plate of food in front of Issei, while Zeirama finished his coffee. Even if he didn't say a word, he knew that the demon was pondering his answer. Zeirama, well, there are many ways to recover it, but before doing that we must confirm several things. Issei, so I continue as if nothing happened, right? Zeirama, I need to prepare something, so yes, act like nothing happened. Issei simply nodded a little as he sighed, finally noticing what food Grafia had given him, who, although she didn't show it, was nervous. It was the first time she cooked for someone other than herself. Even Zeirama looked at Issei's dish with some surprise. Zeirama, that's new. Issei only looked at the demon's surprise before lightly glancing at Grafia, who still didn't show a single change, so without waiting any longer he took his chopsticks before taking a bite of the food. Zeirama, well? Issei, it's delicious. Hearing those words, Grafia watched the brunette eat quickly, something that even Zeirama saw in surprise, which brought a weak smile to the maid who, feeling Zeirama's gaze on her, noticed his seriousness. Grafia, I won't make you breakfast. Zayarama, how cruel. He replied as he stood up from his spot, something that caught the attention of the brown-haired boy who stopped eating to look at the demon who said it. Zayarama, I'll go prepare everything, so once you're free come see me. Issei, okay. She responded, watching as the demon went through a magic circle, something that caught her attention while she was eating, where Grafia quickly remembered something important. Grafia, Issei-sama, there is something you should know. Issei, what thing? He asked doubtfully as he looked at the maid with doubt, who took out a paper from her suit before calmly handing it to him. Issei, I'll grant you a wish. What is this? Grafia, Issei-sama, that is the pamphlet that one of the noblesse and co uses to make contracts, the Gremry noblesse. Issei, Gremry? He quickly understood what Grafia had wanted to tell him, so his surprise was present. He had not believed that Rias Gremry was one of the devils who occupied Ko's city as her territory. And that was not the only thing, but he remembered what he spoke with Rias, who had unknowingly motivated him to take control of the underworld as the new Lucifer. Issei, and to think she was one of Ko's high-class devils. Grafia, that's right, the second high-class devil is Sona Citri, who changed her last name to Shurtorai to hide her identity. Issei, so Kaicho is also a high-class devil. Grafia, that's right. When a demon is in a high class, they have the right to form their nobility. They have already received their evil pieces to form it. Issei, evil spirits. There were many things he didn't know about the underworld, so he was grateful for everything Grafia told him about it. Although what she said next was not what I expected in the least. Grafia, although there is something else that makes them special. Issei, what thing? Grafia, they are the younger sisters of Serzex and Serafal, two of the current Maus. Issei simply couldn't hide his surprise. The younger sisters of the current Maus were within the same territory as the second son of Lucifer. Issei, and are they strong? Grafia, they are. Rias Gremry is a powerful high-class devil in her own right. In fact, she is much stronger than the average high-class devils. She can even become an ultimate class devil just by using the virtue of her talent. It is for that reason that she is called the Crimson-Haired Ruin Princess. Issei, I understand. What about Kaicho? Grafia, Sona Citri is a high-class devil like Rias, but both do not share the same strengths, as Sona's strength lies not in power, but in strategy. She is the most talented strategist among all the young devils, where only Rias Gremry and Sigvera Agars can match her. Although in terms of a strategy Rias would be the third since she is more of a power type. Issei just looked at Grafia, surprised to know that the two young women were the strongest in the territory in their own way, since with Grafia here they stopped being so. Issei, and to think that Rias Senpai was the one who motivated me to recover what belonged to my family from the beginning. Grafia, that's right. Although it's early, I advise you to form bonds of friendship with both of them. They may both be the younger sisters of the Maus, but they will need all the support they need when the time comes. Issei just acknowledged as he continued his conversation with Grafia, who explained to him several things about the underworld, as well as what was related to the other factions. So once he finished eating, he returned to his room, where he got dressed for the academy, where when he went down he saw Grafia waiting by the door. Issei, well, I'm leaving. Grafia, have a nice day, I'll see you again soon. He replied as Issei walked out the door wearing his co-uniform, where he walked the usual path to the academy. Where upon arriving he walked to his classroom with his usual smile, with which he greeted his two friends. Issei Matsuda, Motohama. Motohama Issei. His friend with glasses shouted as he saw him with tears in his eyes, something that his bald friend did the same, which made him strange to see. Issei, did something happen? Matsuda, what if something happened? Yesterday you were seen accompanied by a woman wearing a maid outfit. Motohama, and to top it off, the woman was really beautiful. Who was she? Did you pay her to? Issei, of course not, a couple of idiots. He didn't have to be smart to see what they meant, although he had doubts about who had seen him at that hour with Grafia. Motohama, so you weren't in the company of a maid? A maid? Another voice said, catching the attention of the three, noticing the kendo duo. They looked at them strangely, since the conversation of the three had apparently already caught everyone's attention. Matsuda, it seems that a maid was with Issei yesterday. Kates, how disgusting, you are so perverted that you paid for. Issei, I won't pay for any of that. Motohama, then how do you explain the maid? He asked again, causing those present in the classroom to look at Issei, who upon noticing that sighed before cursing whoever had spread the news. Issei, wait, before answering the question tell me who told you that I was with a maid last night. Matsuda, Aika, she told us that she saw you in the company of a really beautiful maid. As soon as Issei heard that name he turned his gaze to the brunette sitting in one of the nearby places, who looked at him with a playful smile. Aika, what? Are you going to say that's a lie? Issei, of course it is. If you think about it, why would a maid be with me? He didn't finish speaking before seeing the brunette showing him her phone, which showed a photo of him standing next to Graphia talking. Something that those closest to him saw in surprise before looking at Issei, who had been left speechless. Aika, you said? Matsuda, damn, it's true. Issei, wait, this actually has an explanation. Aika, how do you explain this? As soon as he said that, he switched to another photo, where Graphia was kneeling in the fountain in front of him, when he extended his hand towards her. Aika, I don't know what they were talking about, but it was lucky that my camera managed to photograph them. Matsuda, damn traitor, he has even fulfilled your fetishes. Motohama, you deserve to die 1,000,000 times. Issei, damn it, Aika. He screamed as his friends tried to suffocate him with their hands, while the two remaining girls looked at Issei with more displeasure than before, which stopped when Sensei entered the classroom. Sensei, please take your places. At his words, everyone sat down in their seats, although the duo only did so after sentencing Issei to death. Sensei, well, first of all I inform you that from today you will have a new partner. At this announcement, everyone looked at their sensei in surprise, who looked at the door and said, "Come in," which captured the attention of the students. Those who remained were surprised to see the girl who had entered, silver hair that reached her waist, a seductive shape that highlighted her legs as well as her breasts, clear skin and a penetrating look with her crimson eyes that left the entire class breathless. Teacher, please introduce yourself. Yeah. Everyone was surprised, even her voice was seductive and respectful, which caused everyone to blush on their faces when they saw her, something that did not apply to the brunette who looked in surprise at the girl who made a slight bow as she said, I am a maid serving the Heredero house. My name is Venelana, it is a pleasure to meet you. From being enthralled, everyone went on to be shocked upon hearing that, even the teacher was speechless. Which didn't seem to matter much to Graphia, although that was the opposite for the brunette who covered her face on her desk wishing the earth would swallow her whole body. Bina, I hope we get along well. With those words he walked calmly to his seat, which happened to be behind the brunette, who still had his forehead pressed against his desk, where he only stood up when Graphia passed right by him before sitting down calmly. Teacher, well, let's continue with classes, but first Heredero, I want to see you in the teacher's lounge later. With his words, the majority finally noticed his reaction, so they tried to pay attention to the class while they looked at where Issei and Graphia were now sitting. Issei, everyone is watching us and Matsuda and Motohama's gazes are not pleasant. He didn't have to be smart to see who the murderous gaze belonged to, but they weren't the only envious gazes in his classroom either. Issei, this couldn't be worse. He thought to himself as he gave a weak sigh before looking up, but the moment he did that the door swung open, something that quickly caught his attention. If I almost didn't make it, I apologize for the delay, Sensei. Sensei, and you are? He asked in surprise to the boy who had entered the classroom, who Issei barely saw and instantly recognized. Excuse me, I am a butler serving the Heredero house. My name is Sora Desai, as Bina-chan I transferred to this school. It is a pleasure to meet you. Everyone was once again in shock, even Sensei was in that state, while Zairama smiled at Sensei. Where without believing it Issei hit his forehead on the desk thinking. Issei, damn it. His life as heir had started in a way he did not expect, yet he was sure that this was only the tip of the iceberg of the things that awaited him. Chapter 3, risks to avoid. Issei simply didn't know what to do with what happened. Everyone looked at him, including the teacher, because that boy who had entered introduced himself as his butler after someone else introduced himself as a maid of his house. Sensei and butler? Issei, that's right. I was taking care of a couple of matters with the director, who asked me to go see her in her office. Sensei, with the director? I understand. Please take a seat while I take care of that. Excuse me, guys, I'll be back in a moment. As soon as he said that, he left quickly, something that didn't surprise anyone, but they just stared at the boy who was still standing in front of the classroom. Before he could move forward, he was quickly pulled by the arm out of the classroom along with the silver-haired girl. Issei, where are we going? Bina, shouldn't we stay in the classroom? Issei, don't talk and follow me. Without stopping, Issei took the pair of devils to the library, which was empty. Something he knew from hiding here from time to time. He even tended to fall asleep here during moments of boredom during his class hours when he asked his sensei for permission to go to the bathroom. Issei, now tell me, what are you doing here? Wasn't I supposed to keep a low profile? Zairama, that was the idea, but an hour ago we realized that the fallen angel who confessed to her. Issei, Amano Yuma? Graphia, according to our investigation, her name is Rainier. She is a low-ranking fallen angel of Grigory. Issei, I see. What's wrong with her? Zairama, apparently I have been watching you since the moment you left your house. Issei, did she follow me? For what reason? I thought Graphia's threat scared her. Zairama, and he did, but it seems that his objectives have already changed. His objective is no longer to kill him but to study him and find out who he is. Issei, but why? Graphia, it seems that my actions that day aroused his interest. He knows who I am, and the fact that I protected him that afternoon caught his attention. Issei, so have you discovered me? He asked with concern. After all, if they had discovered him, it was obvious that they would come to kill him. The mere thought that there was another son of Lucifer could cause a commotion. That was why he needed to keep himself under a strict margin so as not to stand out. Zairama, not yet, but we believe he has notified his superiors in Grigory. Graphia, and if he did, it's only a matter of time before Ko is filled to the brim with fallen angels. Issei, wouldn't that be overkill? I mean, they don't know who I really am, so moving the fallen angels sounds crazy. Zairama, Graphia has earned a reputation in all things supernatural. They know how dangerous she is, and the fact that she protected a human caught their attention, so mobilizing their agents is not unreasonable. Issei, but this is Rias and Sona's territory. If too many enter, they will give the impression that they want to cause. Zairama, a war, we know. That's why they won't act until they are sure that you are not a danger. Graphia, so far we believe that what put them on alert was how I called him that afternoon. At that, Issei remembered that after Yuma's confession, Graphia suddenly arrived, standing in front of him and calling him Sama before launching her threat to Yuma, or in this case Rainier. Issei, you called me by Sama. In that case, you must believe that I am someone really dangerous if I have Graphia by my side. Zairama, exactly, so far that's the best guess we have. That's why we came to your school. We had to protect you in case of an attack. Issei, didn't you just give me away with your introductions? Graphia, we introduce ourselves so that the rumors about us reach Rainier, which will make two things clear to her. Zairama, the first is that she won't be able to get close to you easily with us around. Issei, and the second one? Graphia, she won't be able to do much alone. That's why she'll call all the allies who are in Ko, that way. Issei, they'll be able to catch them all. Zairama, that's right. This is based on Rainier having informed her superiors. But if she hasn't, we will make sure that she never reports anything. He never believed that on his first day as Lucifer's son he would be discovered so easily, although he did inform his superiors who might be able to reach a close conclusion to what was happening. Issei, I understand, so now the main thing is to find out how much Rainier has gotten right about me. Zairama, that's right, we have Rainier under surveillance right now. Issei, who's watching her? Graphia, she is a Mao class demon, but her power is in the supreme class. Issei, huh? His surprise was justified, since if a Mao-class demon was mentioned, the first thing he would think of was the current Maos. But he knew that it couldn't be them, since he was going to take their positions in a few months or years, and the fact that his power wasn't Mao-class only confirmed his suspicions. Issei Mao-class? Zayorama. There are many classes in the underworld, which are the lower class, the middle class, the upper class, the supreme class, and the Mao class. Graphia. There are currently few of the Mao class, who are the ones using the Mao positions and the descendants of the originals. Issei. So the one watching Reignair now is Graphia, a descendant. I got to know her a few years ago in an abandoned territory. We talked after a brief encounter. Issei. Did they become friends? Graphia. I don't know if our relationship is friendship, but I would say that it is probably so. Zayorama. She is the first within the underworld who knows of its existence. Issei. Huh? Does she know that I'm Lucifer's son? Graphia. When we discovered that a second son of Lucifer could exist, we decided to seek help to find him, so I told him about the discovery, and he agreed to look for who the second son was. Issei. So he's loyal to me? Zayorama. He rather believes that you will hand over the position of Leviathan to him if he takes the position of Lucifer, so he is not entirely loyal. Issei. So you're looking to help me so you can benefit in the future. Graphia. She knows that with her current power she can't face the current Maos, but when I told her that you possessed a destructive power, she quickly joined in. Issei. I see. In that case I will accept the help, but I still won't trust her. Issei's answer didn't surprise them both. In fact, if he had accepted the help without hesitation, they would have had the task of instructing who could or could not be trusted. Issei. By the way, what's your name? Graphia. Kateria Leviathan. You will meet her tonight. He answered as Issei's cell phone rang, and upon checking it he found a couple of messages from Motohama, telling him that Sensei had returned to the classroom. Issei. We have to return to the classroom. With their order, the three of them left the library towards the classroom, where as soon as they arrived everyone was staring at them. Issei. Excuse me, Sensei, but I had to attend to an important matter. Sensei. Huh? Yeah, it can happen. With permission, he simply entered the classroom with both devils. For the next few hours Issei did not concentrate on the classes. Instead he was deep in thought. After all, he was worried that Reignair had discovered who he really is, something that would ruin all his plans. Issei. We certainly need to be more cautious. Aika discovered Graphia with me at the fountain, and as for Reignair, she suspects that it's something important. Being careful was paramount, but he knew he had to shut them both up somehow. So he glanced at the brunette, who was staring boredly at the blackboard, something that wasn't ignored by the two demons who looked at the brunette in the same way. Classes stopped at lunchtime, where many had questions to ask the brunette and the two who had introduced themselves as servants. Issei, come with me. Paying no attention to the other's surprise, he quickly grabbed Aika by the arm before leading her out of the classroom. They were followed by Zayorama and Graphia. Thanks to the fact that lunchtime was just beginning, there were few students walking in the hallways, so taking Aika to a secluded spot was easy. Aika, why did you bring me here? Do you want to confess? If so, you should tell your friends that we. Issei, give me your phone. Aika. Huh? Why should I give you my phone? Issei, do it or I will take it from you by force. The brunette just looked in surprise at the boy, who continued to maintain his seriousness while both demons were at his sides making sure he didn't escape. Aika. Issei, this is not funny. Issei, who said he was joking? With her words she looked at Graphia, who without hesitation caught Aika's arms, while Zayorama without hesitation put her hand inside her sweater, easily taking her cell phone. Aika. Issei, this isn't funny if you don't stop. Issei, shut up. Did you find it? Dezai. Yes, who would have thought that he became so careless? But it doesn't matter. Are there more photos, or are these the only ones? Aika. Bina, answer. His tone scared the brunette. She didn't know what was happening, but she understood well that this was due to the photos she secretly took that night. Aika, I saved some on my laptop as a backup. Issei, okay, when classes are over Bina will go with you, you will give her your laptop and I will return it to you later. Dezai, And make sure you hand over every photo, otherwise you won't like what might happen. Aika, you're not serious, are you? Issei, Aika, you are a companion, a friend. I would hate to have to hurt you even a little if you don't obey me and keep quiet about it, do you understand? She was scared. She didn't understand why those photos were so important to Issei. But she understood that if she didn't do what he said it would end badly. This told her that all this time Issei had been pretending to be a sheep, which was the opposite. He was a wolf in sheep's clothing. Aika, yes. Issei, okay, make sure you give some excuse for me to bring you here. Aika just agreed as Gabriel let go of her, feeling scared by the brown-haired boy's gaze, who simply turned his gaze to Zairama, who calmly extended his cell phone. Dezai, you can go for now. Aika, yes. Still afraid, he took his cell phone before quickly leaving the three of them alone in the place. Because once they were alone, Issei leaned regretfully against the wall. He had never acted like that, and doing so was not entirely comfortable. Issei, did I do the right thing? I shouldn't have acted so rashly. Zairama, from my point of view, what he did was right. He prevented those photographs from being seen by even more people, and he also obtained the location where the other photographs are that could be dangerous in the wrong hands. Gabriel, I think the same. This happened because of my carelessness, and the fact that you handled it perfectly is something I am grateful for. Issei, well, our goal is to make those photos cease to exist, as well as find out the situation with Rainier, also. Zairama, also? Issei, I will try to recover all my powers. Classes went on as normal, although strange due to the event with Issei, who unexpectedly left the academy with Zairama, while Gabriel went with Aika to her house for the photos. Issei, any news from Rainier? Zairama, it seems that he was quick to take the bait. Issei, have you already found the base where they are hiding? Zairama, according to the information Kateria sent, there are 4 fallen angels including her, hiding in the church outside the city. Issei, if I remember correctly, that place has been abandoned for some years. Zairama, in that case there will be no problem in eliminating the 4. Issei, not yet. We have to be sure enough that there are no more unforeseen events. We will observe for the moment, if there is at least one more involved, and if not, we will eliminate them. Zairama, how to order? He answered while looking at the surprised brunette. They weren't going to deny it. From the way he made the decision, as well as the way he acted at school, he told him that the boy was slowly but surely changing his mindset. Zairama, it's curious. According to Lucifer-sama's notes, Issei-sama's power is really dangerous, that his power and personality would go hand in hand, which tells me that the power, still dormant, is influencing his mind and could even transform any unnecessary personality into him. He was surprised. His power had not yet awakened, but it was already making Issei take on the personality of the Mao he was meant to be, a Mao that the underworld did not expect. Zairama, I wonder how scary will he be when he regains his full powers? Just thinking about it excited him. Everything he expected from Issei's power was being surpassed. Even if his power was not awakened, it had exceeded his expectations. So as soon as they arrived at the brown-haired boy's house, Zairama created a magic circle that transported both of them to one of his laboratories. Issei, how do I awaken my power? Zairama, there are many ways, and all of them are dangerous. That's why we will do some tests. He replied as he returned to his adult form. Taking his robe, he began to take several jars from all the tables seriously. Issei, then there is no safe method. Zairama, there are some, but they have their own risks. But in order to begin the awakening of their power, we will first find out what is causing them not to awaken. Issei, my power won't awaken in these years. Zairama, yes, it's because something is inside him blocking his awakening, and whatever it is strong if he doesn't let all his power awaken. Issei just watched as Zairama took several jars, as well as some devices that he placed on a table before pointing at the chair in front of him seriously. Zairama, take a seat. I'm going to have to skin your body, so you have to take off your clothes. Issei, all of it? Zairama, the upper garment is enough. Leave your lower garments for when you are with your women. Issei simply obeyed the one who was taking several gadgets seriously, so he took off his upper clothes before sitting on the chair. Issei, will I have more than one woman? Zairama, as a Lucifer, he has the duty to have a descendant, which is not easy for a demon. That is why having more than one wife increases the possibility of having an heir. Issei, I see. How many do I have? Zairama, he is the future leader of the entire underworld, so he can have any demons he wants, even if they are married to another demon. Issei, is it allowed? Zairama, the position of Mao has many advantages indeed, and with the power that is given to it, I can assure you that even without resorting to your status, you are capable of seducing any type of woman, especially if it is a demon. Issei, my power is capable of that. Zairama, well, your power has a captivating nature for those of your same species. For those of the male population, it makes them feel a sense of fear and respect towards you, but when it comes to the female population, the effects become the opposite. Issei, if in men my power gives them the feeling of fear and respect, then in women. Zairama, it's the opposite. They will naturally feel attracted without you doing anything. Your power will make them want to be with you. Issei, so it's a natural reaction? Zairama, in simple words it is. Their genes will be attracted without even noticing it. A good analogy would be the strongest male gets all the females, which is the opposite as well. The females get the strongest male. Issei, it makes sense, even though there is still some time left for that. It is good to know. I think so. Zairama, well, knowing things about his future is not bad, but we are going against many things to achieve that, so first let's find a way to awaken his power. With those words he pointed to a machine at the brunette, which released a large amount of green lights at Issei. Zairama, I'm going to ask you not to move until, Issei, is something wrong? He asked, a little surprised to see Zairama's surprise and confusion, who simply stared at the screen in front of him for a few seconds before performing another scan that gave him the same result. Issei, Zairama? What's wrong? The fact that she didn't answer only caused tension in the brunette, who before asking again heard the door open. And when he turned his gaze, he saw the silver-haired girl wearing her usual maid outfit, while carrying a pink laptop with her. Graphia, is something wrong? Issei, I don't know. Zairama scanned my body looking for some way to awaken my power, but as soon as I see my results. Zairama, make a scred gear. Issei, A scred gear? What is that? He asked as he turned his gaze to the silver-haired girl, who was just as surprised as Zairama, who just stared at the screen in surprise, something that only confused the brown-haired girl more. Graphia, that shouldn't be possible. Are you sure about that? Zairama, I scanned twice, and it gave the same result. How is this even possible? Issei, can you explain to me what's going on? Zairama, a scred gear is one of the many weapons created by the God of the Bible. Many have different abilities or powers. Issei, a weapon created by the God of the Bible? Wow, I didn't expect that. Is it uncommon? Graphia, it's not that the manifestation of a scred gear is uncommon. In fact, there are many users. Issei, then why the surprise and confusion? Zairama, why are scred gear weapons exclusive to humans and only they can have them from birth? As soon as I heard that, I understood why I was surprised. If only humans could use the scred gear. It meant that he shouldn't have a scred gear since he was a demon, but he had one and that shouldn't be possible. Issei, then I shouldn't have one. Zairama, that's right, you are certainly a devil, so it shouldn't be possible, unless. His words stopped as he put on a thoughtful face before looking at the scan results again for a few minutes that left the brunette as nervous as the maid. Zairama, is it possible? If so, it would be a loophole in the system that even the God of the Bible could not foresee. Graphia, Zairama, have you come to a conclusion? Zairama, perhaps, all this could be called a system error. Issei, system error? Zairama, in the seventh heaven exists the largest system ever seen by the supernatural. Said system is in charge of an endless number of things. One of them is managing the scred gear. Issei, so this system gave me a scred gear by mistake, right? Zairama, correct. Usually for the system to give out a scred gear is easy, it selects someone who is about to be born and gives them a scred gear, which fuses with the child's soul to form a strong bond that is only broken when the user dies. In this way, the scred gear passes to the next child in an infinite cycle. Graphia, that means the system has classified Issei-sama as a Zeirama. Most likely, at the time they took Issei-sama out of the artifact, his aura and genes of a demon were so diluted that the system classified him as a newborn human, a human to whom it was conferred a scred gear. Issei, wait, did the heaven system mistake me for a human because I have my demon aura and genes at a minimum? Graphia, he was in the capsule for a long time. It is possible that he reduced his aura and demonic genes until he looked like a human. If I remember, when I met him, his aura was not very different from that of a human. Zeirama, technically he has the aura of a human. If so, the fact that he had a scred gear by mistake doesn't sound completely far-fetched. Issei, then the one who prevented my powers from emerging. Zeirama, it was the scred gear. It remains hibernating, which seems to influence its power. That would certainly explain why his powers remained hibernating inside his body. But there was something else that was confirmed with this. Zeirama, but a scred gear that can suppress its power is not something normal. In fact, a scred gear could never retain its power if we are talking about the common ones. Graphia, wait, that would mean Issei-sama has. Zeirama, yes, Issei-sama is a user of one of the 13 Longinus. Chapter 4, The State of Power. Even though he didn't understand much about the supernatural world, just by seeing their reaction he knew instantly that what they had called Longinus was not normal in the slightest. So he remained silent, waiting for some explanation from any demon present, who were still surprised. Graphia, are you sure about that? Zeirama, it's the only answer I can think of. Issei-sama's power hasn't awakened, so something must be blocking his path, and a normal scred gear would have gone out of control in the face of such power. Graphia, and the one that remains intact. Zeirama, it's because something of great power is holding him back. Even if it's a Longinus, it should let some of its power leak out, but that's not the case, which means one thing. Issei, what thing? Zeirama, that the Longinus within his body contains the soul of something that is powerful enough to suppress his power that is in an immature state. Issei, a soul? Saying that, she was confused, but that was not the same for Graphia, who saw what Zeirama meant, leaving the maid speechless when she saw the brown-haired boy again, who only looked at her waiting for an answer. Graphia, among the 13 Longinus there are at least 6 that could be said to carry a soul inside them, such as the Regulus Nemia, Absolute Demise. Zeirama, Canis Lycaon and Incinerate Anthem are all independent type scred gear, so they could be considered to have a soul, but in reality they have their own consciousness. Issei, huh? So they don't have a soul? Graphia, the previous Longinus do not have a soul but a self-awareness, but thanks to how they move or think they can be considered to have a soul. Zeirama, but different from the 4 independent Longinus type scred gears we mentioned, both the boosted gear and the divine dividing are different as they possess both. Graphia, a soul and self-awareness. Issei, so they're alive? Zeirama, technically yes, but their bodies were destroyed while ago, so the only reason they could still exist was because they were sealed inside both scred gears. Saying that, he typed a couple of things on the monitor, which quickly turned to where he was showing him a crimson glove and some white wings, with their respective names above. Zeirama, of the Longinus type scred gear we mentioned, only the pair on screen could block their powers. Issei, just one of these 2? Graphia, that's right, the other scred gears would have leaked a bit of their power at some point, but it never happened, so the only explanation is that it is one of these 2 Longinus in which the sealed souls are strong enough to stop it. Issei, I see, but what makes them so special? I mean the Longinus and those 2 in particular. Zeirama, as I told you a moment ago, the scred gear are powerful weapons created by the God of the Bible. Many of them have at their disposal an ability or power that is quite useful or powerful. Graphia, but that changes in those who receive the name of Longinus, since in order to be recognized as a Longinus, it must have certain characteristics. Issei, like which ones? Zeirama, there are many factors in the selection, possessing more than one power or ability can have an influence, but in order to be recognized as a Longinus, only one thing is necessary. Graphia, may the Scred Gear have enough power to change the world. Issei, huh? Change the world? That's to say. Zayorama, yes, whether it's destroying the entire world or causing an impact on the world, that's the scope of a Longinus. If it reaches its perfect phase or manages to go beyond that, it will have not only enough power, but it will be able to face the power of a god and very possibly kill him. Graphia, that's why all Longinus-type Scred Gears are so feared in the supernatural world. In the right hands it could do great good, but in the wrong ones. Issei, it could destroy everything in its path. Zayorama, that's right, and it is for that reason that Grigory's fallen angels hunt down Scred Gear users who will not be able to properly control their power. Issei, that's why Rainier. Graphia, write to her, you were a human with Scred Gear that she was supposed to eliminate. Issei, but having intervened to stop her. Zayorama, we caused him to suspect you, that's why we must be careful with the movements you or we make. Certainly now everything made sense, why Rainier had appeared and asked him out that day. All because she had a Scred Gear inside her, something she wasn't supposed to have, like a devil. Issei, I see then what makes those two Scred Gear special, aside from the fact that they're Longinus? Zayorama, well, out of all the 13 Longinus, the Boosted Gear and the Dividing are the only ones that share a rivalry. Issei, rivalry? Graphia, that's right, in the past, during the Three Factions War, 2 dragons appeared in the middle of the battlefield. Zayorama, and without caring about their sudden spectators, they did not stop and continued fighting, causing great casualties to the 3 factions. For that reason they joined together with the sole purpose of defeating both dragons. Graphia, once defeated, both dragons were sealed into a different Scred Gear, Boosted Gear and the Dividing, which using their users continued to fight for generations. Zayorama, and one of those dragons is currently inside his body. Only someone with a soul of the caliber of those dragons would be able to block their powers. Issei, are they that powerful? Graphia, indeed, there was a reason why the 3 factions had to ally themselves in order to defeat them, not to mention the fact that even the gods were afraid to face them. That was the power that the 2 of them had. Zayorama, the Dividing carries the soul of the Dragon of Supremacy. Albion, and the Boosted Gear carries the soul of the Dragon of Domination, Drake, the 2 celestial dragons that even a god did not dare to face. Issei's surprise simply could not be described in words. Knowing that a celestial dragon was in his body was news that would leave anyone surprised. Issei, which of the 2 dragons is in my body? Graphia, it is currently known that the Hakuyurko has already awakened. Zayorama, therefore the dragon that is within you is the Dragon of Domination, Drake. He certainly hadn't expected the current result, even if he was told. He was already strong with his dormant power, but now he had one more power. One that even the gods feared, which made the boy more nervous who didn't know what to do about it. Issei, I see, if that's the case and the dragon is inside me, how do I access its power? Zayorama, and that's where the problem lies. Issei, why? Zayorama, well, in simple terms, the Boosted Gear prevented his power from manifesting in these years, so consequently his power is within a state of immaturity. Graphia, her body grew these years without adapting to her power, which did not bring anything good. Zayorama, if the blockage disappears, in this case if the Boosted Gear awakens, it will stop containing its power, and at the moment it is released it will seek to adapt to its new body. Graphia, whether you tolerate it or not. Issei, in other words, he will try to violently adapt himself completely. Zayorama, that's right, for the moment it is not advisable to awaken both his power and his Scred Gear. First we will have to find a way so that his power does not end up killing him the moment he awakens. He had to admit, he was quite disappointed with the result. He never imagined that his own power could kill him if he didn't control it. Although with Zayorama's words it seemed it would be temporary, until he found a way to adapt all his power to his body. Issei, how long will it take to do that? Zayorama, less than you think. If the problem with your power is the lack of compatibility with your current body, then we will have to let your power pass slowly. Issei, huh? But you said that could kill me. Zairama, if we release everything at once, but if we do it slowly without even awakening the boosted gear, the chances of it adapting increase. Grafia, isn't it risky? There's a chance that his power could get out of control and he could try to break out by force. Zairama, we could use some seal that filters part of his power, and use the great pressure that the boosted gear exerts on his power to keep him under control. Issei, so would it be like a key controlling the flow of water? Zairama, practically yes, a seal that filters its power while the boosted gear serves as a barrier, is the best solution I can think of at least for now. Issei, there aren't many options so I'll do it. Grafia, how long will it take to have the stamp ready? Hearing the question, the demon fixed his attention on the computer. For a few minutes he remained in a slight silence before saying, Zairama, 12 hours maximum. This signal will take me at least that long to prepare properly. Issei, fine, I'll wait the 12 hours. If I want everything to go well, we'll have to be really cautious. Zairama, as you wish. Grafia, take Issei-sama to meet Kateria, but make sure she doesn't do anything stupid. When the seal is ready, I will give Grafia the notice to come. Saying that, he walked until he entered the next room, leaving Issei and the maid in the same room, where he asked her to follow him to another door in which he could see something similar to the hall of a mansion, only this one was underground in some unknown place. Issei, then I will meet Kateria in this place. Grafia, that's right. I just ask you not to be influenced by what she says. She is too strict on the subject of demon classes. Issei, I understand. Grafia, there are still a few hours left, so I will take advantage of all that time and teach him everything related to the underworld. Saying that, a magical monitor materialized from nowhere behind her. It was essential that she knew everything related to the underworld. If she was going to rule the place, she had to at least be aware of its customs, history, and actions to take in that place. For the next 4 hours Issei sat in the room listening to the information provided. He had to admit that the underworld had a mania for having everything classified in social classes. Still, knowing other types of things like the rating game caught the boy's attention, a game where devils faced each other and the strongest was placed at the top. It sounded pretty cool in his opinion. Of course, that's without mentioning the marriages that were organized, since apparently even if the young people did not agree with the marriage, they had to respect it and produce a descendant, all being close to extinction thanks to the war of the 3 factions. Issei, that explains why Zairama told me that you could have more than one wife, even if she was married to another devil. Grafia, naturally, you can go and choose any demon to be your partner. They will feel honored to have been chosen, but regarding taking the wife of another demon, it is something that is not allowed, although in your case it is possible. But Issei, it would be frowned upon even if I'm a Lucifer. Grafia, right, I advise you that if you are going to choose a devil married as a member of your harem, be sure and consider keeping that relationship a secret. Issei, technically lovers know? Grafia, right, it's the most sensitive thing, so you can use them as you please. If they get pregnant, you would have to decide if the child is born or dies. Hearing the last part wasn't encouraging, plus the possibility of killing his own son, although if he was honest that one of the married demons would fall in love with him, it didn't seem possible. Issei, I don't think I'm that cruel. Even so, that happening is unlikely, even though I haven't even had a girlfriend. Grafia, so you haven't had any kind of contact with a woman? Issei, yes, I only know what I've seen in some videos, but more than that, there's simply nothing. With a heavy sigh, the brunette looked at the silver-haired girl, who took on a weak, pensive face. Something that lasted a few seconds, where she made a decision, and without further ado, she looked at the brunette on the couch. Issei, is something wrong? Grafia, Issei-sama, something you should know is that as the future Lucifer, it is your duty to have some heir. Issei, yes, I know, that's why having a Grafia, Issei-sama, having a harem is important. But consider this: how do you plan to satisfy all the members of your harem if you have no experience with them? Grafia's question had already been considered by Issei. He knew that having a harem involved a lot in regards to responsibility. He had the duty to make them happy, to please them not only in an emotional way, but also included in the physical way. And having zero or no experience with women, it became a difficult task. He knew that he could learn on the go, but just imagining that he might not be able to satisfy them caused him a slight fear that over time it would become greater and harder to bear. Issei, I thought about that. I haven't done it in depth yet, but I'll know when the time comes. I may make mistakes and end up terrible on some occasions, but… Grafia, no need. If you want, you can practice with my whole body as long as you want. Issei, huh? He replied confused. He didn't expect that proposal from Grafia, who could easily tell that she wasn't lying. That if he asked her, she would without problems let him touch her and use her as he wanted, something that he didn't consider possible at first. But he wasn't going to deny it. Grafia was one of the most beautiful women he had ever seen in his life. She had the perfect body, one that a man would kill to have under him moaning his name. Something she was more than aware of. In the past, several demons had set their eyes on her. Even the current Lucifer fell in love with her. Issei, why, you're serious? Grafia, of course. I was taught that we, the Lucifuge, are the right hand of the Lucifer. If they want something, we will do everything to get it. That is why, if you are worried about not having experience, you can get it using my body, which no man has had access to since my birth. Issei, yeah? So you are. Grafia, that's right. I'm still a virgin. In the past, I was never interested in having sex or falling in love. But now that you need it to grow, I wouldn't mind letting you experiment and enjoy my body as many times as you want. Issei, but doesn't that bother you? A woman's virginity is. Grafia, I appreciate that you care about that, but instead of being upset, I would feel honored and happy. Serving you is the only thing that matters to me. If you are happy, I will be too. He was perplexed. He didn't know how he should react. Naturally, Grafia's offer was too tempting. Seeing Grafia's naked body, one that no one had had access to, could be used by him, he was not an idiot. By the shape of the maid's outfit, he could tell that she perfectly hid her feminine charms. Charms that, to this day, no man had been able to see or touch. He was the only one who had been given that opportunity, and it was up to him to decide whether or not to accept the proposal. Issei, Grafia, I really appreciate what you say, and I'm flattered that you say it like that. Loyalty like yours is incredible, but I… Grafia, I understand. There is no need to say it, Issei-sama. I apologize for what I said. I did not consider what your feelings were. Please forget. Issei, it's not that. I'm interested in the proposal you gave me. But if I do have sex with you, be sure of one thing, Grafia. Any woman I decide to sleep with will become my wife and an official member of my harem. Do you understand? Grafia, of course. Sorry for forgetting where I belong. Issei, don't misunderstand me, Grafia. You don't have to apologize. I told you and I repeat it again. I am interested in having sex with you, but if I do, I will take responsibility, and you will automatically become part of my harem. It was at that moment that Grafia, for the first time in a long time, showed surprise. She always remained calm even if the situation was critical or dangerous. But right now she showed a surprised face at what her master said. She didn't care about being her master's toy. Even if Issei raped her, she was not going to resist or reject his actions. She was the property of the Lucifer family. She would only serve whoever was going to rule the underworld. That included satisfying his needs. She never considered being part of that group of women who had the right to carry Lucifer's offspring, much less to share marital happiness with him. Grafia, Issei-sama, I really appreciate your words. I have never felt as happy as I am now, but I cannot accept that a Lucifuge should not and does not have the right to be by your side as your wife, and even less as to concubine. Issei, I see, in the past that's how things were, but we're not in the past and I'm not interested in being in it either. Grafia, I'm the legitimate ruler of the entire underworld. If there are two paths, I'll make one in the middle. I don't care if no one agrees. I decide what I'll do and how I'll do it. The others obey me or they'll pay for not doing it. His words told her that they couldn't be ignored, that he was serious about his decision. No matter what, he would do what he wanted even if no one was going to agree. That was the weight of the Lucifer name. Even when she saw Issei stand up from her spot and walk towards her, she felt a slight fear inside her, one that told her that she shouldn't go against the young man's wishes or the consequences would be serious. Issei, that's why I'll tell you once again, Grafia, I'm interested in having sex with you, You know what will happen if we do it. That's why I ask you now, are you still willing to give yourself to me? Knowing what that means, are you still willing to give me all of yourself? For the first time in her life, she felt a strong desire to get away and hide just like a little girl. But she couldn't do it. Her body seemed to be unable to move. For that reason, when she felt her back hit the wall, she was surprised. Without realizing it, she had been backing away. And Issei had been getting closer until finally cornering her body against the wall. She felt helpless for some reason. She knew that her power was currently and surpassed that of the current Issei. But for some reason she couldn't go against him or get away from him. It was as if her own body was betraying her. It was as if she wanted to be controlled by the immature son of Lucifer, who only gently extended his hand to be able to caress her cheek, something that could be called a simple action on the part of the brown-haired boy. But for Grafia it had been quite the opposite. The moment Issei touched her cheek, a vision passed before her eyes. In front of her was not that young man who had just discovered his heritage and the supernatural, but rather a silver-haired man wearing a worthy mouse suit, who gave off a powerful and majestic aura. An aura that everyone around him respected. This was the future, and Grafia knew it perfectly. Issei had been born to rule not only the underworld, but everything that exists. If that was her destiny, who was she to refuse what he asked for? She hadn't forgotten that night in front of the fountain she had sworn not only her loyalty to him, but had also given him her body without hesitation. And right now he wanted to claim her not as an outlet for his sexual desires, but as the first member of his harem. She never thought she would be part of it, but Issei had made it so she let out a weak sigh before looking at the brunette. Grafia, you don't need to ask me that question, Issei-sama. I swore all my loyalty to you as well as my body. If being part of your harem is what you want, in that case I will not refuse. Hearing that surprised the brunette, who without thinking much approached the maid, who, seeing Issei's closeness, closed her eyes the moment those young lips touched hers. This was her first kiss, as was the brunette's, who, letting himself be carried away, moved his lips next to those of Grafia, who like him moved in a clumsy as well as shy way. The kiss could only be described as that of two beginners, one that had no desire or lust. It was simply one that showed the interest of both, and without showing any hurry they separated their lips gently. The kiss had only lasted a few seconds at most, but for the duo it had been more than that. Even both were surprised to realize what they had done. But even with that they ignored the rest to join their lips again. Only this time they both tried a little harder, prolonging the kiss to a minute or two before the weak withdrawal of both, who could only hear the heavy voice of the other. They could feel each other's breath on theirs. They even felt the need and desire to join together again. But while they were going through that, in another of the rooms, Zairama watched with a little concern the screen that showed him a magic circle that in itself could be called too complex that even the most experienced would have a headache seeing it. Zairama, this is really interesting. The first skin wasn't accurate, but the second and third ones I did showed something I wasn't expecting to see. Who would have imagined that Issei-sama not only got a scred gear, but that it already has balance breaker activated? He couldn't be wrong. The scanner he had used on Issei was one of the most precise and powerful he had at his disposal. And in each scan, the powers of the boosted gear ran through and fed the brunette's body in more than one way. Zairama, this explains why his powers did not awaken as he grew up, as well as why there was no power leak with the soul of the celestial dragon Drake, along with the activated balance breaker. The perfect barrier for his powers was created. He wasn't an expert on what a scred gear was, but he knew that being born and having balance breaker activated at a young age wasn't normal. Zairama, the physical condition itself was not normal, and having been influenced by the dragon's aura must have changed many things. Being locked in that capsule did not bring a problem, but quite the opposite. Issei's body was special since birth. Even if he had just been born, he could withstand all his power without problems. But having been locked away and suppressed left a free spot for any other type of power, which was occupied by the already activated boosted gear. Throughout Issei's growth he was never shown to be different from the others. He never showed any ability even if the boosted gear was awake, which made him think of one thing. Something he didn't consider at first. Just as the boosted gear blocked a leak, Issei's natural power was in charge of doing the same with the boosted gear's abilities and power. Said in a more specific way, the power of both did not mix. It was as if both powers were somehow aware of what the situation was inside their user's body, that the slightest mistake could cost him his life. Zairama. We were wrong. Issei-sama's power is already accustomed to his body, which is the same with the boosted gear, but neither of them gave a sign of manifesting, which only gives me one answer. With that thought, he wrote a couple of things on the monitor, which showed a simulation of Issei's body. And it showed what a shock state would be like. Either could move without causing some problem in the body. Without the user's guidance, they had both remained on hold for all this time. Zairama. They could not manifest themselves on their own, and without Issei-sama's support, both powers were left in a state of continuous check that lasted 17 years. The answer was simple. There was never a problem with the adaptation, but with the union of both powers. For Issei's natural power, the power of a skred gear was unknown. The same was with the boosted gear. This type of power was unknown, even though it belonged to the demon trait, its composition. Nature and power were completely unknown and strange. That was why it did not mix with that type of power. The two did not trust each other, but they knew that they had to coexist with each other, leading to the result now. With two powers unable to trust each other, it caused Issei to not show any kind of power. And thanks to that, the brunette thought that like the others he was normal, which was a mistake. With his powers in check, going unnoticed as a devil was easy. Their powers contained each other, hiding the natural aura of a devil as well as any kind of hint of power this entire time. Zairama. If that is the real reason why Issei-sama has not shown a trace of power in 17 years, it makes clear what needs to be done for the two to manifest without harming him. With that thought, he looked at the monitor where he began to create a kind of signal, which slowly began to show various features of complexity without problems. But while he was doing that, inside the other room things had taken a different turn, since now Issei was sitting on the sofa with Graphia sitting astride him, where he easily had both hands inside the maid's skirt. This while both shared a passionate kiss, one that unlike the first showed great desire and pleasure for the other, who at this moment couldn't even believe what he was doing, and even if they had told him before he wouldn't have believed it. That day he would kiss a demon, as well as touch her, but during the kiss, feeling well how it was shaped and soft, but that he didn't count the pressure of the maid's breasts against his chest, letting him at that moment appreciate the softness of them, as well as the texture they had. No demon had ever touched her, she told him that herself, which made him the first and only one to touch her in her entire life. He even managed to make her agree to be part of his harem, where if he was honest he did not expect the answer to be positive, but rather he expected one more rejection from her. But contrary to what he thought, he received a positive answer, where he confirmed the veracity of Graphia's word. She told him that her body belonged to him. For that reason he decided to touch her breasts, but while they both kissed. And as she had told him, she let him touch every part of her body without being reprimanded. Even when he asked her to lift her skirt to touch her but directly, she didn't refuse, but did it. She lifted her skirt just enough so that he could touch her, something that brought them to their current position where they were kissing passionately. He had no intention of stopping, and the way Graphia was kissing him told him the same. But even if they were short of air, they didn't separate for long, but the sudden ringing of Graphia's phone brought them back to the real world. Graphia, excuse me. Separating from her lips, the maid walked away, summarizing her posture, as she took out something resembling a flat rectangle made of what looked like glass, which being transparent she could see what it contained, seeing that there was a language that she quickly understood for some reason, even when she saw the message upside down, which she ignored for a moment when she saw Graphia's slight surprise. Just by seeing that she knew that something important had happened. Issei, is something wrong? Graphia, nothing to worry about, but it seems that today we will have one more visitor besides Kateria Leviathan. Issei, another visitor? Does anyone else know that I'm Lucifer's heir? Graphia, only a small number of demons know of his existence, but I didn't imagine she would want to meet him. With that said, he pressed some buttons and felt what was the answer. So without waiting he got up from his place, which caused a slight disappointment in the brown-haired boy, who would have liked to continue and schedule the visits for another day, but he was also aware that he had a responsibility to fulfill. Issei, who exactly is it? Graphia, you'll meet her in a minute, so you better have the right outfit for this. Saying that, he pointed his hand at the brunette, who was surprised to see a magic circle forming in front of him, and without expecting it, his clothes flashed for 3 or 4 seconds before revealing that he was wearing a different outfit, which seemed to him to be someone from a noble family. He was not an expert in fashion, but just by looking at the fabric he could tell that if it was sold, it would have a high price even if it was in the human world in the underworld. Issei, is it traditional clothing? Graphia, that's right, but only Lucifers can wear these clothes. Wearing them in the upcoming meeting is appropriate. As she said that, she adjusted her clothes with the same magic circle, which made it seem like she hadn't had her hands inside her skirt or touched her breasts until a moment ago. And just as she finished, in the middle of the room a magic circle appeared, one that, unlike Graphia's, was surrounded by flames, and when they died out they revealed the appearance of the visitor. He wasn't going to lie. The woman in front of him caused him some fear as soon as he saw her. He wasn't going to deny it. That serious look, her aura was frightening to a certain point. Even so, I could say that she was beautiful. Graphia, Issei-sama, let me lend you Riveria Phoenix, the second daughter of the current Phoenix clan leader, Rius Phoenix. Issei, the second daughter? Graphia, that's right. Her older brother is Rival Phoenix, the current heir of the Phoenix clan, which leaves Riveria in second place to inherit the position of clan leader. Issei, I see, in that case it is a Riveria, is this a son of Lucifer? The sudden question interrupted the brunette's greeting, who looked at the demon with doubt. She took a couple of steps towards him, staying just a few steps away while she looked at him up and down a couple of times, something that left the boy a little nervous. Riveria, when you told me you finally found the second son, I was expecting more than this. Are you sure he's a Lucifer? The surprise did not take long to come to Issei, who watched in silence. The girl's tone and attitude had been harsh. She even looked at him with disapproval. Graphia, Issei-sama is the second son of Lucifer without a doubt. Sayarama made sure not to be mistaken. Riveria, I see. If this is the son of the late Lucifer, then the one who is this week must have a reason. Graphia, there is. I'll give you the details of that later. Riveria, very well. Now, what should I call you? Lucifer-sama, or would you prefer Issei-sama? Issei, it's hard to answer when you don't mean it. He didn't have to be smart to see that Riveria wasn't taking him seriously. He didn't know if it was intentional, or if that was her whole attitude. But after answering, he could see how the Phoenix's gaze changed slightly, just as she limited herself to looking at where Graphia was. Riveria, maybe there is hope in what you asked me to do, Graphia, but that will depend on how I handle them. Saying that, 3 magic circles appeared behind him, which Graphia and Riveria recognized. Worrying the first one more, Riveria calmly walked to one of the sofas, where she sat down. Just when 3 figures appeared in the room, all wearing clothes just like the brunettes, he simply knew that the trio in front of him were of the same rank. Issei, this is bad for some reason. She could easily tell that Graphia wasn't happy with the arrival of the 3, although Riveria seemed indifferent to her state, remaining as just a spectator. While Graphia just sighed before saying seriously to the brunette. Graphia, Issei-sama, I present to you the original descendants of 3 of the 4 ancient Maus, Cruzari Asmodeus, Shalba Beelzebub, and the one you originally met today, Kateria Leviathan. Saying that, everyone focused their gaze on him, something the brunette imitated, even if he couldn't use his power. He could at least say that the 3 people in front of him were strong, but weaker and more arrogant than Graphia was, who was looking sideways at Riveria, who was thinking calmly while looking at the brunette. Riveria, O descendant of Lucifer, prove that you are worth my time, otherwise you will die in this place. Thinking that, I watched Issei's meeting with the original descendants of the ancient Maus. What will happen now that the 4 of them have reunited? Chapter 5, A Balance of Power. The entire room had been left in silence. No one said anything. Even Issei remained silent under the gaze and analysis of the heirs. Something that the brown-haired man imitated. He had no idea how to handle this situation, but he knew that the loyalty of the trio of heirs would depend on this, or that was before the silence was broken. Is this Rizavim's younger brother? Said the descendant of the old Mau Beelzebub. He really is pathetic. I really expected something better. It's not a big disappointment. This boy is not even worthy of bearing the surname Lucifer. If he wants to, he's a Lucifer? He doesn't have the same hair as Rias of him, or the same aura or power, he said, just like the descendant of Asmodeus. It's like an insult to his lineage. Who, like Beelzebub, wore noble clothing almost identical to his, except that they differed in color. It may be true, but I think we shouldn't judge one of Lucifer's descendants prematurely, said the only descendant of Leviathan quite calmly, and with a certain air of arrogance. Although I must admit that it's not what I expected. Even if she didn't say anything good, Issei had to admit that Kateria was a tall, beautiful woman with glasses and a voluptuous figure. She had tan skin with long brown hair tied in a bun, not to mention her grayish-blue eyes. Although what caught her attention the most was that she was wearing a very low-cut dress that had a high slit that left a large part of her breasts exposed. It didn't take long for them to catch the brunette's attention, causing Cruzuri some annoyance. But before he said anything, he noticed that the brunette was looking at them one by one as if he was judging everything about them. Something that Grafia noticed: she had been annoyed by the comments of the original descendants, something that she assumed annoyed the brunette, but when she looked closely she noticed that he had been completely silent, watching the three descendants seriously. HMP judging ahead of time? Don't talk nonsense, Kateria. Just by looking at it you can tell that it's a, he said reproachfully before Issei interrupted him. Useless? That's what you were going to say, right? He said seriously, causing a silence in the room that left Riveria slightly surprised. Certainly the state of the underworld is worse than I expected, the brown-haired boy said with a sigh as if he saw something truly desperate. Which quickly annoyed two of the descendants, who changed their reactions almost instantly. Oh, you dare to interrupt my words, misfortune of the Lucifers? It's clear that you don't know your place, he said, about to lose his patience due to the brown-haired boy who responded. Of course, I am the son of Lucifer after all. Besides, misfortune of the Lucifers? You really have the guts to insult the one who will rule all of the underworld. The one who will rule the underworld? How stupid! A demon like you has no right to rule, he said, not caring if he was really Lucifer's son or not. And you do? Do you think that because you are one of the original descendants you are already worthy of rule? He said while looking at the demon who looked at him angrily. What a funny stupidity. Do you really think that the underworld will follow you? They will do it because I am an Asmodeus, one of the original descendants, he said confidently while Issei laughed lightly. Do you think they will follow you just because you are a descendant? How naive of you to believe that, since currently the 4 positions of the mouths are occupied, he said while looking at each of the descendants before saying. May I ask? Why are you not the ones occupying those positions? You are direct descendants, right? Why are those occupying those positions now not direct descendants? And why is the underworld following them and not you? A hostile atmosphere appeared in the room, causing the brunette to get a little nervous. But he still didn't stop looking directly at the trio who had different faces upon hearing his words. Both Cruzuri and Shalba had a face that showed their intentions to kill him, while Kateria remained surprised and disgusted upon hearing his words. I am a Lucifer. Whether you like it or not, your blood runs through my veins, so I have every right to rule the underworld, he said fearlessly to the 3 descendants who caught the interest of the Phoenix present. HMP, do you think that because you are next in line you have the right to rule the underworld? He said while his anger was at the limit, so much so that it seemed that at any moment he was going to attack the brown-haired boy. Do you really think that they are going to follow you? It was the same question Issei asked before, but unlike him, Issei didn't know how to answer that question. No, they won't follow me even if I'm Lucifer's son. If it didn't work out with you, even less with me, they're going to follow me because they have to, he said while his gaze turned around, showing a weak silver color in his eyes. Because at that moment it will be known that they will be better on my side than against me. Once again the whole room fell silent, this time because of what Issei had said, who kept his face calm and serious in front of everyone's gaze. And the most impressed was the brown-haired boy, who had no idea where he had gone to get so much courage to face them. That's why I'm going to tell you this now, he said as he turned his serious gaze towards the descendants. Stay out of it, don't do anything stupid that will harm things. If you do, I assure you that I will be the one to end your existence. Insolent brat, said the descendant of Beelzebub furiously. taking a few steps to approach Issei, but before doing so Grafia stepped forward protecting the boy. "Xiaoba-sama, I suggest you calm your temper, otherwise," he said with great seriousness that increased Xiaoba's anger. "A mere Lucifuge dares to threaten me?" He shouted furiously to the point that he was thinking of attacking them. But before he could do so, bars of fire emerged from the ground, stopping Xiaoba's advance, who looked at the flames in surprise. He was not the only one, as Cruzri was just as surprised, while Kateria stared at the flames before sighing and saying, "Riveria, your ability to hide is certainly dangerous," the descendant of Leviathan said regretfully. Saying the name of the demon, the trio of descendants looked in every direction trying to find her. "Concealment?" the brunette thought seriously as he turned his gaze to the female demon sitting calmly on the couch. "So besides me and Grafia, Riveria is invisible?" He thought in surprise before noticing that everyone had focused their attention on where Riveria was sitting, who only gave a sigh as she stood up while the flames slowly died down. "Wow, their conversation was very entertaining to watch. I was expecting something a little more boring," but he said without even caring about the serious look of the descendants trio. "I must admit that this exceeded my expectations." "I should have known you'd be here," Riveria said, the descendant of House Asmodeus. "TCH, what did you come for? Are you going to accept the proposal I made you?" he asked seriously while looking directly at the phoenix, who looked strangely at the demon. "I'm afraid to say that I came for another type of matter. Besides, you know that as long as the condition I set you is not met, becoming your partner is out of the question," he said calmly before the descendant, who hardened his gaze even more. "HMP whatever, there's no point in me staying here," saying that he left inside a magic circle. "I think the same as Xiaoba," said the descendant of Asmodeus, who turned his gaze to Kateria. "Are you coming?" "No, I still have something to discuss with Grafia and Lucifer-sama," he said with a somewhat serious tone, surprising Cruzri, who clicked his tongue as he left. Which made Issei sit on the ground somewhat pale, something that was not a surprise to Grafia or Riveria, and even Kateria understood that Issei for a few minutes had put great pressure on himself to remain serious and direct before the three of them. After all, she had received the information from the brunette before Grafia spoke to him, so seeing his character and seriousness in the discussion was a surprise to her, so much so that she understood that the boy was not lying and truly planned to rule the entire underworld. Not to mention that he had touched on a valid point in the discussion: even though they were the descendants, none of the devils of the underworld were going to follow them. The tyranny of the ancient Mao was still not forgotten, and even as the years passed they were gradually being forgotten, so an existence like Issei's was going to bring about a change in the underworld, and even devils like Cruzri as well as Xiaoba had to accept it. "You did excellent, Issei-sama. I didn't expect you to handle the situation perfectly," he said as he quickly helped the boy sit down. "It was certainly interesting to see it, and at the same time entertaining. I admit that you exceeded my expectations," he said while looking at the brunette with a slight smile. "Issei-sama." Both Grafia and Kateria opened their eyes in surprise. Ever since they met Riveria, they had never seen her be respectful to anyone. She even treated the Maos as another type of demon, like a phoenix who managed to experience a special technique from her family. The demon's attitude changed completely on that day when she experienced the rebirth of the ashes. Her power took a huge leap in one day, going from a normal high class to a Mao class devil. To this day it was still a complete secret to the underworld. Only a few knew of the great leap her power had taken. Such as the Maos of the underworld, her family, and some other devils from an important house in the underworld. Beyond that, the fact that she possessed a level that was classified as a Mao level was unknown, and remained that way for many years. All thanks to the fact that Riveria never seemed interested in participating in any raiding game, or even forming a nobility. She had refused to have her set of evil piezas, which was not a surprise in itself. The demon was very proud to the point that even her familiars feared her at a certain point. Only her mother dared to seriously raise her voice to her. "Are you going to treat me with some respect now? Or did you just do it because you found it funny?" he said as he focused on the phoenix, who smiled as she placed her hand on his cheek, surprising the brunette. "Let's say you have my attention. Your demonstration makes it clear to me that even when there are strong beings at your side, you will not submit even if it costs you your life," he said while placing one of two fingers on the brunette's lips, who, without looking away, observed the phoenix's eyes where he could see a strange glow that for some reason made him nervous. Maybe you are the demon I have been waiting for a long time. Saying that, she walked away from the brown-haired boy, who was still confused, something that the two demons present found strange, and without paying attention to them, Riveria just walked away from the brown-haired boy while a magic circle formed at her feet. Grafia, consider what you asked me before as a fact. It seems that it is worth it, he said while the light in the magic circle increased like flames. I hope you meet my expectations, Issei-sama. Saying that, he disappeared from the room, leaving a strange silence, which lasted a few seconds before the brunette turned his gaze to Grafia, who looked at the brunette in the same way. I don't understand, was this a good thing or was it bad? I guess both. Riveria is not someone who talks for the sake of talking. She is surely planning something, he said with a slight seriousness. Still, being alert doesn't hurt, he said as Issei sighed for a moment before looking at Kateria, who until now remained silent, so he shifted his gaze before asking. Kateria Leviathan, I must admit that I did not expect to meet you under such circumstances. I say the same thing. When I was about to come, they contacted me saying that they agreed to accompany me, he said a moment before approaching both of them and sitting on a sofa. That clearly surprised me, since I never invited them. It must have been Riveria's doing. I asked her for the favor yesterday, but I also told her that they would both meet today, the maid said seriously as she looked at the Leviathan. Riveria always does what she wants, so it's not strange that she made the meeting this way. It was still risky. Those two are too rooted in the ancient underworld. I doubt they will see that even if they don't want it, there will be a change, he said, causing surprise in Kateria and Grafia. They both knew that the underworld would not change for many reasons. One was the devils who refused to change their way of life. Another was the first-generation devils who remained rooted in living like that, which in a certain way the devils limited themselves to accepting. But Issei was the second direct son of Lucifer. He had weight in his words within the underworld. How will it change? Are you going to demolish the social classes? Or are you going to withdraw the demon council? She said as Issei looked at her once more. I don't know exactly the state of the underworld. I would have to see it and judge it personally. But from what I know, the only thing that is useless within the underworld is that council that only acts at its convenience, he said seriously while Kateria only limited herself to observing. Issei-sama, the demon council is something your father Lord Lucifer did, she said before being interrupted by the boy who simply said, I am not my father. I do not think like he thought, and I do not judge for what he judged. Maybe for him the idea of the demon council without restrictions was the right idea. But for me it is something that should not be left like that without even having some kind of control, he said while both demons were slightly surprised. Both Grafia and Kateria had believed that the boy would stay out of all the rules that his father created before he died. Something that apparently was not going to be the case. The boy only planned one thing when ruling the entire underworld, and that was to be at the top of all the demons and rules that existed. Nothing could be above him, something that if both were honest, they saw as difficult. All demons were subject to all the rules of the underworld, and that included the current mouse. But Issei planned to be above them all, even if no one within the underworld agreed. And that was because many had forgotten what it meant to be the ruler of the underworld. Issei would do whatever he wanted, even if it meant throwing everything created until now into oblivion. If that is your will, then I will support you, said the maid who looked at the brunette woman who remained silent at that. He certainly plans to go big in the underworld, Issei-sama, Zayarama said out of nowhere as he entered the room. It seems that everything is going well, he said, seeing Kateria sitting there, but at the same time he quickly noticed the situation in the place, something that Grafia was quick to explain to him, surprising the demon upon hearing it. Wow, I didn't expect Riveria to show up just to test it. That woman is too troublesome, however, he said while looking at the descendant of Leviathan who had a different look than usual. It doesn't matter. I came to tell you that the seal that will allow the union of their power, or rather powers, is already there. Huh! I thought it would take 12 hours to be ready. Me too, but I discovered some as I investigated further, he said as a magic circle appeared in the room. Only this one had nothing to do with the underworld. And I also invited an old friend to help me, she said while Grafia and Kateria looked surprised at the symbols that she had already recognized, which was not the case with Issei, who was still confused by a new visitor. She barely appeared and sat on one of the chairs in the room, but what surprised the brunette the most was that just by looking at her he knew that this woman was strong. I hope it was worth it that you called me so unexpectedly, Zairama. Remember that I only owe you one favor, she said with a smile, while Issei saw the newcomer somewhat tense. Naturally, I called you for something that might interest you, as well as the favor you owe me, he said while looking at the brunette who was still surprised by that woman. Issei-sama, let me introduce you to an important figure within Celtic mythology a long time ago, Scathach, he said as the woman looked at the brunette who simply didn't know how to react to that predatory look. Something that only caused amusement in the woman who continued to observe him with the same look that a predator gave to his prey. So this boy is Lucifer's second son, he said as he looked at the brunette from head to toe, feeling a slight fear. Interesting. That's right, as you already noticed his power is in a state of check, so I need two things from you, he said as he took out a scroll, which he threw towards the woman who only caught it in the air. One is that you helped create that, and the second thing I need from you is that when part of Issei-sama's power has stabilized, you join his peerage. He said calmly, surprising everyone present who looked at the demon in disbelief, something that Scathach instantly identified with, completely ignoring the scroll in her hand. What the hell are you talking about? The maid said, surprised, while Issei remained silent. I know that Issei-sama must have a peerage, but directly asking Scathach to be part of it is too fast. Grafia has a point, Zairama. I owe you a favor for what you did in the past. But now you are asking me for two things, he said seriously while looking at the inside of the scroll. You have to be joking, Zairama. With the scroll or with the nobility? Remember that you owe me favor, he said calmly while looking at Scathach. About both, I owe you in favor, I don't deny that. But you're asking me for two difficult things, he said as he stood up from his place, showing what the entire scroll contained. Do you really want to use this sign on the boy? Everyone looked at the seal. Grafia instantly knew what it was. Kateria took only a few more seconds to understand. Which left both of them just like Scathach. Zairama was asking for two really difficult things. Zairama, what are you planning? Said the descendant of Leviathan who until now had remained silent in his place. I say the same. I never questioned your methods these years, but what you are planning now is insane, the maid said in disbelief, causing more doubts in the brown-haired boy present. Zairama, I am indebted to you. I am, since you helped me that day. But what you asked me today is something, he said before stopping when he saw how the demon took out a tablet where the state of Issei's body could be seen. First listen, then say what you think, he said while touching the screen that was projected to everyone in the room a couple of times. As you can see, Issei-sama's state is unusual. His power does not mix with the power of his scred gear, causing all his power to be in infinite check. I already deduced that just by looking at him. But what does that have to do with you wanting the golden meridian seal on the boy? The purple-haired girl said seriously. Simple. As you know, the golden meridian seal was created to contain the power of the N-beast trihexa, a seal that worked wonderfully, but what I'm looking for is this, he said while the image of Issei's body showed the seal, which began to mix its power together with the boosted gear. The balance that the seal grants is the most perfect that exists. With the seal in your body, the time to master all your power will be greatly reduced. It's still too dangerous. That seal is too powerful, the maid said seriously, showing that she was opposed to using the seal. I say the same. The seal was designed in order to completely seal a great power, not to mix two different powers, he said seriously as he looked once again at the projector, where he noticed something else. Wait a moment, he said as he looked at the seal inside the projection before looking at the one inside the scroll, which finally told him the plan the demon had. You are a bastard, Zairama. Are you going to modify the seal? He said, causing everyone's surprise except for Issei, who still didn't understand. Exactly, I'm going to modify it. In fact, it's something I did a while ago, he said as he showed the seal in the projection, only this one had some changes. The seal was created for absolute sealing, but, with some or many modifications, I managed to make the seal completely change its role from being an absolute seal to a partial seal. Wait, is that possible? The descendant asked confusedly towards the maid who was looking at the projected seal. Well, the design is the same, but the function is different. If you're not paying enough attention, you wouldn't notice it, she said, surprised, while Zairama smiled proudly. It was one of my greatest achievements in all these years. But I was unable to test it because of how high the skill to perform it was, he said as he turned his gaze. That is why I called you Scat Hack. You have great knowledge in magic that you managed to accumulate these years after your defeat. Even so, this is something insane. For the creation and application of the seal, many things are necessary, he said when he saw the seal better before looking at Issei, and even if we could gather everything that is needed to create it, an insane amount of power is necessary, one to which I am sure that none of those present have access. You are wrong. I already have everything necessary to create the signal. Even the power to activate it is present in this room, he said with a smile, which surprised the three women when they knew who he was referring to. The power inside Issei-sama is insane to the point that if he controlled all of that, his powers would not run out even if he fought for 100 years. Is it that big? Said the demon with glasses, looking at the boy who had already given up on understanding the situation. That's right, not even the most precise scan is able to measure its power. That's why its dormant powers are the perfect battery for the seal, he said while looking at Scat Hack, who was seriously looking at the seal. That's why I want you to repay me the favor with this, Scat Hack. If you do, we'll be completely even. She said as the aforementioned seriously watched the projection before looking at the demon seriously, then looking at Issei for a few seconds where she just sighed. Alright, I'll help you with this diorama. Once I get it done, we'll be completely even. But this is the first time I'm going to do something this complex, he said while looking seriously at the demon. It will take me a couple of days to finish it, so I'll stay here during that time. Of course, take all the time you need to, he said before noticing Scat Hack looking at the brunette. But before we start, I want to know what the boy thinks. Everyone finally looked at the brunette, who until now hadn't said a word. You've already heard everything that's planned, boy. Do you agree with this? Everyone looked at the brunette, who, seeing that they finally took him into account, sighed before standing up. I really didn't understand anything they were talking about, he said as he looked at the projection. But, at least I understand that this will help me use my power better, so okay, I'll do whatever it takes to achieve what I plan. Very well, if you are willing to do that, I will do it to repay the favor, that he said before noticing how Zairama had raised his hand. About that, you owe me 2 favors, he said, missing the purple-haired girl. Do you remember that a few years ago you asked me to find an important object for you? Yes, I remember, but she said before opening her eyes wide at the sight projected in front of her. Well, I finally managed to find it, and if I remember correctly, you told me. If you managed to find that, I'll owe you another favor, he said as he looked at Scat Hack's incredulous face. And as you can see, I found it, so you owe me one more favor, he said, causing Grafia to sigh as she covered her face using the palm of her hand, something Kateria understood upon seeing the projection. Wherever you see it, that's low even for a demon, the descendant said with some sadness while Issei nervously watched Zairama's action. This is something that even I wouldn't have thought of, he said while seeing Scat Hack's expression, which showed great anger. Zairama, when exactly did you find her? He asked, trying to contain his anger. 6 months after you asked me, he replied calmly. And you waited all these years to tell me? He said as Grafia took Issei's hand to leave the room. Well, you didn't tell me to tell you right away, and since you don't call or visit, I thought you weren't in a hurry, he said as Kateria silently left in a magic circle. Really? Then why didn't you tell me 2 years ago when I came for the Celtic scrolls that Grafia found? She said, about to explode in anger, while the aforementioned slowly closed the door after Issei left. Oh right, I must have forgotten about it because of everything related to the investigation into Issei-sama's whereabouts. So you owe me 2 favors, he said before noticing that he had been left alone in the room with Scat Hack. Where did they go? He said quite strangely as he heard Scat Hack snap his fingers, which made him understand why everyone had left the room. Is it okay if we leave Zairama alone with Scat Hack? Issei asked the maid, who simply answered. Of course, he asked for it after all, she said as she paused for a moment to look at the brown-haired boy. But more importantly now, he said before feeling how the place where they were was shaking slightly, surprising them both, which made Issei nervous. Later I will go see how it ended, for now it will be better if we let Scat Hack vent, he said while lowering his gaze a little. Issei-sama, I know there are things to do, but are you sure about using the seal on your body? We don't know if it will work. There are no options. The longer it takes to recover my power, the more vulnerable I will be, If I want to achieve my goals, I will prepare for whatever is necessary, he said while placing his hand on Graphia's cheek. So I understand your concern, but it is necessary to have to do dangerous things if the situation warrants it, he said while Grafia showed doubt about his decision, something that the brown-haired boy understood. After all, there was a risk in failing. I have no intentions of dying, so don't worry about it. Trust that everything will turn out well in the end, he said while smiling. Besides, I still have to learn many things. If I'm going to rule the underworld, it will be necessary for me to learn even the smallest things. I understand, leave that to me. I'll teach you what you need to be up to any challenge, he said as the device he was holding ranged. Something that caught both of their attention quickly, so Grafia took the device out of her clothes, seeing a message from Cateria, which she barely read when she changed her expression. Is something wrong? He asked when he saw how the maid's expression had changed. It seems that the fallen angels are not acting alone, he said as the device showed an image that Grafia was quick to show Issei. There is a devil working with them. In her words, Issei just watched in surprise as Rainier spoke in the abandoned church with a man who wore a cloak to hide his entire body and face, leaving his wings exposed as the only way they could identify him. But while that was happening in somewhere in the world, on a beach that humans did not have access to, Riveria could be seen walking through the sunny place. Watching with a smile the butler present, who upon seeing her bowed before pointing towards the sea with his gaze. Place where Riveria could see a beautiful woman swimming, who was quick to notice her presence. So despite seeing her, she took all her time to return to the shore, revealing a slender and seductive figure. Something that past a certain age still looked too young, a common state for demons. Which was also true for her, who calmly accepted the towel from more maids, who in an instant placed her sandals on it. Riveria, it's unusual for you to visit me unexpectedly. Has something happened? She said as she dried her hair with the help of the maids. Nothing interesting, Aunt Eleanor. I just wanted to ask you, if you remember what you told me the day my older brother Ruvel was named heir to the Phoenix clan, she said with a smile to her aunt who walked towards her entering the shade of the umbrella. Yes, I remember, she said as one of the maids gave her a robe that covered her entire body. I told you that if you were interested in taking Ruvel's place as heir someday, to tell me before anyone else, and I would gladly help you get it. Why? Has that day ever come? That's right, I want to be the heir to my clan. Will you help me? She said with a slight smile, while her aunt looked curiously at her niece. Naturally, Riveria, I told you I would help you and that I will. But I am a little curious. Why did you change your mind? He asked as he looked at the maids and the butler who only bowed before leaving. Let's say that the underworld is about to change drastically. Something that even the mouse won't be able to stop, he said mysteriously, awakening all of his aunt's curiosity. Something that even the mouse won't be able to stop. Girl, you've aroused all the curiosity I have, he said as he took a couple of steps towards Riveria, who held his gaze. Tell me what's coming, maybe I'll join whatever is coming. She said while smiling, something that Riveria imitated while she watched how both were alone on the beach, so without hiding it she calmly said to her aunt. In this world there exists a Lucifer besides Rise of Sama, one who is willing to take control of the underworld at all cost, he said without showing any hint of lying, which caused a smile on his aunt who walked away to see the ocean. A new Lucifer in the world? I've never heard anything so entertaining in my life, he said while licking his lips before looking at Riveria once more. Looks like my boredom is about to end. Chapter 6. A Nobility Worthy of Lucifer. Issei looked at the image that was shown on the phone in surprise. Before turning serious his expression, he quickly saw what that meant. Something that Grafia already knew, so she looked at the image and analyzed it as much as she could in an attempt to identify who had met with Rainier. There's no clue who it is, right? Issei asked Grafia, who just shook her head. It is not possible to identify him. He even used a different magic circle. It is clear that he hides his identity, as much as possible, Grafia said, looking seriously at the image. External support from demons is not something I thought about, Issei said as he limited himself to thinking. He certainly didn't consider this situation in the slightest, and if he was honest, he would never have considered this. The reason was obvious. Still, this situation was one he had to expect if he ever thought of ruling the underworld. He knew without a doubt that not everyone would be happy with him taking power, and that more than one would try or could plot something against him without knowing it. There was plenty of evidence of this, so he sighed before looking at Grafia, who was waiting patiently. So once he thought about it, he understood what he should do for the moment. Tell Kateria to continue the same, not to get involved or draw attention, Issei said while Grafia agreed at the order, so he took the phone once more before sending the message. Issei-sama, I think you already understood, but if not, I need to tell you that not everyone will be loyal to you, Grafia said as she put away the phone. I know, I have a long way to go, and this will be something I will face or see in the future, Issei said as he looked towards the lake corridor. No matter how difficult it is, I will reach the end. There was no turning back. If he wanted to be the future ruler of the underworld, he had to prepare for any possible situation. So after discussing the situations with Grafia, Issei returned home to rest after having several strong experiences. He had not only changed his life, but his goal in it. He was the lost son of the former ruler of the underworld. And not only that, now he had to change his way of living, even doing things he was not used to. Like his actions with the heirs, who like him had the right to rule, but from the little he saw, he knew that they were not the most suitable for that. He was even a little worried about the future of the underworld in their hands, where he was sure they would do something very stupid as soon as they were named the leaders of the underworld. That was why he wanted to make sure that they would not rush into making a mistake. With those thoughts he had gone to sleep quite worried and even somewhat afraid that they would try to kill him while he slept. Being the son of the devil has benefits and consequences that can threaten your affairs or even your life, Issei thought with his eyes closed. Unlike every other day, today his alarm clock didn't ring, not because it was a weekend. On the contrary, he was planning to skip school that day. After what had happened, he needed a break, and going to school wasn't something I considered important now. I guess I'll have to get used to this feeling from now on, Issei thought as he turned his body. He didn't know what awaited him, so being a burden was not an option, especially at these times when he had to be careful. For now, the only thing I can do is wait for the seal to be finished, so I can access my power and screed gear, Issei thought before moving. What is this? He thought strangely as he touched something that he could call quite soft, which no matter how much he touched it gave him a weak and gratifying satisfaction. Even moving his hand over it felt better, and when he moved it to the side he felt something similar. A strange feeling invaded him when he touched it, as if there was something that could truly be called immoral in it. Am I dreaming? Issei thought before feeling a warmth surround his hand, as well as the touch of the fabric still on his side. It took a while to become present. This is this? Heir of Lucifer-sama, a voice said in a weak whisper, causing Issei to finally open his eyes, finding something he never thought of. Seeing the girl's expression, Issei quickly walked away, being surprised in more ways than one. He even fell off his bed while the girl was still recovering from what seemed to be a great experience, given that the blush and glassy look did not seem to be close to disappearing but rather increasing more. Who is she? Issei thought in surprise. He couldn't confuse her with Grafia, given that their physiques were different, not to mention that they didn't look alike at all, watching how she seemed to recover from the greatest and most exciting feeling of her life. It made a feeling of pride appear in Issei, who passed by not knowing her. He knew that just by doing that to her, it caused her endless emotions that she didn't seem to be used to. Did it really feel that good to have me touch her breasts? Issei thought with a bit of doubt as well as pride. Huh! Wait a minute, didn't she call me Lucifer-sama? Although it had taken him a few seconds to notice, he remembered that just before he let go of her, she had called him that. So in theory, the girl lying on his bed was not human, but a demon like Grafia and Zairama. If she's a demon, it means that if I let her touch me, would she let me? Issei thought with some expectation, feeling all his senses related to the idea. Something that didn't last as the door opened, revealing Grafia, whom she barely saw. She understood that this wasn't going to end well at all. The demon's gaze was serious, and even terrifying in several ways, something that the girl in the bed didn't seem to notice at first. She even ignored the maid's presence, to gently crawl from her bed to where he was sitting. Something that allowed the brunette to observe her cleavage once more, letting him appreciate for the second time the girl's white brow that matched her outfit perfectly. one that he would have enjoyed if it were because of Graphia's deadly gaze, which without saying a word continued to observe what was happening, making it clear that he would leave it up for the girl to notice his presence in the room, something that the girl was going to take while to notice as she was focused on the brunette. At that moment he had no idea what he should do, especially when the girl arrived in front of him, being in a compromising position, which in anyone's eyes was quite erotic. "Do it again," the girl said the moment her face was in front of Issei's. "Huh?" Issei confused said. "Please touch my breasts again," the girl said while Issei just looked at her in surprise. "Please, I beg you, Lucifer-sama." Hey, Issei said, trying to warn of Graphia's presence in the room, which seemed to be ready to kill her at any moment, something that only terrified Issei, who raised his hand, causing the girl's face to only light up as she believed that he would touch her once more. But far from her expectations, Issei only took her by the chin to turn her face towards where the door was, where at first he left the girl confused, who quickly understood why he had done that. "Are you having fun, Lindsay?" Graphia said to the young woman as she entered the room. Letting out a surprised moan, she quickly stood up from her spot, at the same time arranging her entire maid outfit before Graphia's deadly gaze. "I deeply apologize," said the girl now named Lindsay. She bowed not only to Graphia, but also to Issei, who had already gotten up from the ground, where she just limited herself to watching. She had no intention of entering the crosshairs of anger, so she limited herself to just watching the situation. "I thought I ordered you to calmly wake up, Issei-sama," Graphia said in the most severe tone Issei had ever heard. "Oh, of course," Lindsay replied without looking up. "Then why were you lying on Issei-sama's bed with a vulgar face?" Graphia asked, scaring Lindsay, who let out a weak moan of terror. "You even crawled over so that he could ask me to touch you again," Graphia said, this time looking at Issei, who raised his hands saying that he didn't understand what had happened, which Graphia didn't seem to care much about as she focused her attention on Lindsay once again, who trembled at Graphia's aura and intentions. Lindsay said, terrified. "Silence," Graphia said seriously. "Forks," Lindsay replied, more terrified than before. Something that left Issei speechless. From the little he knew about Graphia, he could tell that she was a serious woman. But in the right situations she could be somewhat submissive to his desires, something that was confirmed before the meeting with the heirs. So seeing her act like that was a surprise for the boy, who just sighed. "I asked him what punishment should he give you?" Graphia said while Lindsay moaned in terror upon hearing it. She even raised her body, revealing to the brunette that she had become even paler than she already was, telling Issei that Graphia's punishments weren't pretty at all. So, leaving everything aside, he took a couple of steps towards Graphia. "Come on, Graphia, don't be so harsh. It was just an accident," Issei said while the maid looked at him. "Issei-sama, you shouldn't be so flexible with mistakes," Graphia said as she turned in her direction. "If you allow this behavior, I know, it could be repeated, but in this situation I am partly to blame," Issei said as he walked until he was in front of Graphia. "It is possible that because of my actions Lindsay did not comply with your orders, so do not be so harsh," Issei said as he placed his hand on Graphia's chin, who just let Issei do whatever he wanted. So he limited himself to caring for the maid's lips, and without caring if Lindsay was looking, he gave a chaste kiss to Graphia, who showed a faint blush at her action. "Ignore what happened today, okay? I'll make it up to you later," Issei said as he looked into Graphia's eyes, which suddenly stopped showing that seriousness and anger she had for a submissive and docile look. Something Lindsay didn't see thanks to being behind Graphia, who now had a slight blush on her cheeks. "Since it is Issei-sama who asked for it, I have no choice but to accept it," Graphia said more calmly. Which brought out a mental sigh from Issei as he saw that everything had calmed down, but the moment he looked at Lindsay, he was a little surprised to see that the demon was now looking at him in wonder, as if he had accomplished an impossible feat in the world or in history. Something that confused him a little, but at that moment he decided to ignore it, since Graphia moved away from him a little so he could look at Lindsay, who upon seeing that he stood up straight while smiling. "I suppose I should introduce her properly," Graphia said before pointing at Lindsay with her hand. "This is Lindsay Oroba. She is the only living member of House Oroba, a house already considered extinct from the 72 pillars of the underworld." Hearing the introduction, Lindsay bowed to Issei, who only looked at the girl in surprise, knowing that she was the only living member of one of the 72 pillars of the underworld. "It's a pleasure to finally meet you," Lindsay said politely. "Excuse me for the way I acted in front of you." "Don't worry, it was my fault. I should have been more attentive to my surroundings," Issei said while Lindsay blushed. "Still, it was very disrespectful for a maid like me to find out Lord Lucifer's bed, that's why," Lindsay said nervously. "We'll discuss that later. For now we'll leave it like that," Issei said to Lindsay, who was surprised. "Now I just want to have breakfast." "Of course, Issei-sama. The girls have already prepared your breakfast," Graphia said a second later. "Alright, let's go then," Issei said instantly as he walked towards the door before stopping the moment he processed what Graphia had said. "The girls?" Issei asked in surprise before his gaze noticed something else, which he had ignored until now. And that was that he wasn't in his room. In fact, it wasn't even his house. There was a huge amount of space in that room, one that would take up almost the entire second floor of his house. Which made it clear that he was no longer at home, so he looked at Graphia waiting for an answer. When she saw her master's face, she smiled at his surprise and disbelief. "When we returned to his home, I realized that there wasn't enough room for someone of his status," Graphia said with the same calm. "So I went around the city at night to find a suitable place for him to stay temporarily, and I bought the only acceptable mansion in the city." Graphia's words left Issei surprised. He hadn't expected that. Even buying a house didn't cross his mind at the moment. Although he admitted that the space in his old home was a bit small, so what Graphia said had some reason. "I see. I would have liked you to consult me before, but I guess it's okay. Having more space doesn't hurt," Issei said while Graphia just smiled at him. "I apologize, but he came back so tired yesterday that I didn't dare wake him up from the comfortable sleep he was having," Graphia said as she took Issei's hand. "If you need anything, don't hesitate to ask me. I'll do it no matter what it is." Somehow all of Graphia's words managed to make him see. She was so devoted to him that she could only thank her father for having raised her like that. "I appreciate it. I even feel indebted to your father for the education and discipline he taught you," Issei said as he took Graphia's hands. Which seemed to be surprised by that, and at the same time made her wonder if it was the right time for her to meet Issei, who simply smiled at her before leaving the room in the company of both maids, who led their way to the dining room, where two more girls dressed as maids were waiting for them. The first one approached Issei and made a somewhat elegant bow, taking the edges of her skirt to lift it, and thus slightly bending her knees. A rather elegant greeting for Issei, who nodded in response upon seeing it, which seemed to make the young woman happy who, without expecting it, said, "It's a pleasure to meet you, Lucifer-sama. My name is Madeline Decarabia, a member of the extinct House Decarabia of the 72 Pillars of the Underworld," Madeline said with a smile. "The pleasure is mine," Issei said before looking at the other girl, who upon feeling his gaze quickly lowered her head. "And my name is Jasmine Kame. Like my companions, I am a member of an extinct house of the underworld, the House Kame," Jasmine said after making her slight bow to see Issei, who at that moment was quite surprised to see the young woman's black wings, which upon noticing it she retracted almost instantly while saying timidly, "I apologize, Lucifer-sama, but unlike my companions and the demons of the underworld, those who are members of the House of Kame have feathered wings instead of the common demon ones," Jasmine said, trying to somehow hide her wings. "And for some reason we can't hide that we have them. That's why I apologize greatly if my wings bother you." Issei was simply surprised at the Kame House's explanation, so he smiled at Jasmine, who still had an embarrassed face. "Don't worry, they don't bother me at all," Issei said while Jasmine blushed upon hearing that. "If there is nothing else to add, it is better that you serve breakfast to Issei-sama now," Graphia said calmly, causing the three maids to go to the kitchen while Issei sat down on the main chair in the dining room, where Graphia sat next to him in silence. When that none of them said anything, Issei knew that the reason for that was because Graphia wasn't going or didn't intend to ruin this meal with some boring news. So she sighed as she noticed the three maids coming out of the kitchen, all of them carrying a plate with a specific food. They could all be called quality food in the world, so without waiting she began to eat while the three girls followed behind Graphia waiting for some more orders. Something that Issei didn't notice while eating, but if he had noticed it he would have seen the maids behind him whispering to each other, It seemed that Lindsay was telling them everything that happened in the room, bringing out more than one surprise in her companions. At first they were surprised by what happened in bed, where by intuition they looked at her breasts before seeing Issei, who was still eating. They were then shocked to hear that Issei had controlled the temper of the strongest female devil within the dining hall, leaving them almost in shock to know that someone had managed to not only calm Grafia down, but make her smile. Of course, her whispers ended up catching Grafia's attention, who turned slightly, causing the three girls to remain silent. Something that partly caught Issei's attention, who remembered something he had to clarify at that moment. Grafia, Issei said, calling to the woman who took a step towards him, attentive to all his words. I wanted to ask this, but I always forgot. While ago you told me that those who know of my existence within the underworld and in this one are very few. That's right, those who know of their existence can be defined as a vanguard lurking within the shadows of the entire underworld waiting to fulfill their orders, Grafia said while easily seeing the curiosity in the brown-haired man's eyes. Do you want to know who they are? Yes, this morning with what happened with Lindsay made it clear to me that I don't know who to trust. I don't know who my allies and who my enemies are, Issei said while looking at the maid. I understand. Knowing who knows you will be useful at some point, Grafia said seriously while thinking about it. That's right, that way I'll know how to act with the demons I meet, Issei said waiting for the maid's response. Currently, the demons who know about your status are the maids under your command. You already know 3 of them, Grafia said while looking at the 3 behind her. You only need to meet 4 more. 4 more? Are there 7 maids under my command? Issei asked Grafia, surprised. Technically there are 8 of us with me. I am the leader of your personal maids, who will obey any order I give them, Grafia said while Issei saw the 3 girls behind Grafia who just acknowledged. I see, but when I'm not around, and neither are you, who directs them? Issei said while Grafia remained in a brief silence before saying. When I'm not present, the one who takes command of all her personal maids is Anastasia Valak, Grafia said with a somewhat serious tone and with a certain degree of respect towards the aforementioned demon. Anastasia Valak, Issei repeated with a slight doubt about the demoness who managed to make Grafia respect him in some way. Is she strong? Among the 8 of them, I am the strongest, which by rule makes me the leader, but the only one who has challenged me for the position of head maid is Anastasia Valak, Grafia said while the 3 behind her trembled slightly at the appointment of the confrontation. The only one? Issei said with surprise. That's right, my power far surpasses that of the others, but Anastasia Valak is the only one with the power necessary to be able to face me, Grafia said seriously. I have defeated her around 120 times, and I still have to try harder than the last time. That's because each time we meet she gets stronger than before. So she, Issei said as he noticed the hierarchy of the maids. She is the second strongest, so much so that I wouldn't be surprised if the day she has her own evil piezas at her disposal, she applies to be your queen, Grafia said in a serious tone. The position that rightfully belongs to me, she will desire it with all her being to the point that she will challenge me to a fight that day for the position of queen. I see, in that case, 8 maids, 9 with Zairama, plus the 3 heirs as well as Riveria and Skatnak would be at least 14 who already know of my existence, Issei said while Grafia agreed. Besides them, who is aware of my existence? With Issei's question, Grafia took a couple of seconds to respond. With great speed, Grafia remembered everyone she spoke to about her master as well as her future husband. Not counting them, those who know of their existence would be at most 9. If I take into account the actions that some are going to take, the number would be at least 12, Grafia said, leaving Issei slightly surprised as he looked at his dresser. 12, I didn't think there were many. At least I can be sure that the secret of my return remains hidden, Issei said while Grafia agreed. You shouldn't worry about that. No one will dare to say anything for the moment. Even so, time is pressing. You need your power to direct them, Grafia said seriously. Which Issei knew. He needed all his dormant power if he wanted to stand in front of all the devils. So once he finished his meal, the maids took all the cutlery and plates to be used to clean them, leaving him for a moment alone with Grafia. When will I meet the rest of the maids? Issei asked while Grafia received a message through that device. If you wish, right now, the others have already returned from their missions and are training at the Zairama base. As for Anastasia Valak, she will be absent for a couple of days due to matters that she must resolve before meeting with you, Gracia said while Issei only nodded before getting up from his place. I understand. In that case I will meet the other 3 maids, Issei said while Gracia agreed. So they waited a few seconds for the 3 maids to return, which took a few minutes before returning to the dining room, and with an order from Gracia the 3 of them stood behind her. And without waiting any longer, Issei stood next to Gracia, who quickly transported them to Zairama base. Appearing in the same hallway where Issei appeared the first time, and under Gracia's guidance he headed down a different path, where the 3 maids followed him silently until they reached another door, which unlike the other one was twice as big. And upon entering, Issei was greatly surprised to see how several types of explosions appeared over what seemed to be a huge coliseum. The door through which they had entered had taken them to what could be called the stands of the Colosseum, and in the arena he saw 3 girls facing each other at a great speed that he could not even keep up with. They were so focused on their fight that they didn't notice their arrival, which allowed Issei to better visualize the fight that was taking place, where he was surprised to see not only the occasional explosion, but also shots in the air that seemed to knock down everything they touched. Impressive, Issei said while Gracia noticed Issei's situation. So using her magic she made a pair of glasses appear in her hands and then gave them to Issei, who by putting them on could see the movements of the maids more easily. They don't seem to be close to finishing, so I'll introduce them, Gracia said as the glasses focused on one of the maids, which jumped from one side to the other with a rifle in his hands, with which a burst of bullets was fired that even without the proper knowledge, Issei could only say that they had all the power to destroy a tank or pierce a plane with a single shot. She is Gabriella Balam. She belongs to the extinct House Balam, one of the last clans to become extinct from the 72 pillars of the underworld, Gracia said while the glasses showed her a direct photograph of the maid. The same thing embarrassed Issei a little when he saw that the photo that the glasses showed before him included what that girl was wearing not only on the outside but also underneath her maid outfit. Next is Ida Ranov. As her last name indicates, she belongs to the Ranov house, which unlike the Balam and other houses of the underworld, the Ranov were the second house to become extinct. Ida appeared 12 years ago in one of the abandoned territories of the entire underworld. No one knows how she got there, and that includes her, Gracia said while the glasses showed her another photo like the previous one to Issei, which embarrassed him again. He was happy enough for the image he saw, but at the same time he felt guilt invades him when he saw what the maids were wearing without his consent, something that Gracia seemed to notice, and without mentioning it she changed the configuration of the glasses. And the last one is, Gracia said as the lenses focused on the last of the combatant maids, which blocked all the bullets without a problem with a shield, while moving with a sword attacking when the moment presented itself. Angela Dantalian, Gracia said with a slightly sentimental tone. She represents what a maid is, and that is because the Dantalian house was in charge of serving the Lucifuge in jobs that required murder or kidnapping within the underworld as well as in the human. It was the first house of the 72 pillars to become extinct. Issei was surprised to hear Gracia's description to the young lady, who unlike the previous 2 seemed to have a slight attachment to the young lady. Even Issei noticed that Gracia's gaze towards where the young lady was that of an older sister proud of her achievements. She appeared before Ida in a clandestine slave leaves in the underworld. If it weren't for Zairama as well as Anastasia, Angela would have been the slave of some demon of the underworld, Gracia said with some annoyance. When they brought her, she was the first one I trained as a maid and the one who came closest to how I am. The others have their strengths, but Angela is the one who has stood out the most. Her words surprised Issei, who discreetly looked at the 3 maids, who didn't seem discouraged at the least, but instead seemed to be in the same mood as Gracia, proud of their companion's achievements. Among her maids she ranks 3rd in strength, then Ida, then Lindsay, Madeline, Gabriella and finally Jasmine, Gracia said calmly. But even if the hierarchy between her maids is like that, you should not let appearances deceive you. They are powerful in their own way. Saying that, a loud sound appeared, so everyone looked at the arena, in which Angela had Ida on the ground using her shield, while her sword and gaze were against Gabriella's neck, making it clear who was the winner of the match, something that Issei could understand after thinking about it as well as taking into account what Gracia had said, who applauded, drawing the trio's attention to the arena. Enough, Gracia said as her voice echoed throughout the sand. The three of you had a splendid fight. Seeing Grafia and hearing her words, the trio quickly recomposed themselves, to the point that they were already in front of Grafia and Issei, bowing. We still have a long way to go, Grafia-sensei. I promise I will be much stronger in the next fight, Angela said before looking at her companions. I was careless in combat. In a real battle I would have died, so I am still a long way from receiving a compliment from you, Ida said while only maintaining her bow like the other two. I still trust in my ability to hide. In a battle I must be cautious and not depend on it as much as I usually do, Gabriella said at the end while noticing, like her two companions, the presence of Issei, who, upon noticing that they were watching him, took off his glasses while smiling at the three of them, which surprised the girls. But upon seeing the trio behind the boy as well as Grafia at his side, they quickly understood that the young man was the one they were destined to serve. It was a good fight. If it weren't for the current state of my power, it wouldn't have been necessary to use these glasses, but at least I can say with certainty that the three of them are quite strong, Issei said to look like the son of a Mao who knew what he was doing. Although I haven't had a real fight yet, so my opinion now wouldn't be entirely valid. Don't say that you flattering me is a dream, Angela said, blushing when she saw that she was in front of Lucifer's son. Our right bucking Lucifers are telling us that is a blessing none of us deserve, Ida said, almost as embarrassed as Angela. Hug, I showed a shameful side of myself to Lucifer-sama, Gabriella said while covering her face with both of her hands. He even flattered me, one of the most useless. They each said nervously, causing Issei to be surprised, since the others hadn't reacted that way. So he felt slightly confused about what he should do, but before he could think of anything, Grafia mentally whispered a spell to him. Don't be surprised by their reactions, it's normal for them to react like that, after all they are destined to serve you in whatever you want, Grafia said while Issei responded in the same tone. But the others didn't react like that, Issei replied while Grafia couldn't help but laugh lightly. On the contrary, when they showed up in the dining room they felt the same as them, so once they left their sight they did the same. That's why he doesn't have to be surprised by their actions, or they will believe that they are making him uncomfortable, Grafia said while Issei just gave a slight sigh. If he was honest, Issei had no idea what he should do. From Grafia's words he could tell that the 6 young girls held him in high regard, or rather they just admired him greatly. Even if Grafia told him that they were somehow in love with him, he would have believed that without any problem thanks to all the reaction the young girls had. He didn't know how to reciprocate all that admiration. After all, this was new to him, so much so that just seeing the situation made him nervous. But as Grafia had said a second ago, he couldn't show himself like that, or else it could cause some kind of misunderstanding between them. So based on a manga she read, she walked until she was in front of Angela, who still had her head down. So she gently took her chin just like Ida while Gabriella limited herself to observing her actions. Your words move me. I don't think I deserve them yet, but I assure you I will carry them in my heart, Issei said exactly what he had read from that manga. Something that seemed to make not only the trio of girls in front of him happy, but those behind him as well, since they all looked at him with truly shining eyes, as if his voice alone was enough to make them happy. You've all heard of Issei-sama's great kindness, so please serve and hand over whatever he asks of you, the silver-haired maid said as Issei breathed a sigh of relief. After all, you are destined to be members of the Lucifer nobility, so prove your worth. They all responded with, yes, in unison, leaving the brunette as the only one who seemed to need to have what Grafia had said at that moment explained to him. Members of my peerage? Then they, Issei said while Grafia just agreed. That's right, they have been trained as well as trained to serve Lord Lucifer, not only at home, but also at work, and actually, Grafia said calmly while all the girls blushed faintly upon hearing that. I see you have, huh? Wait a bit, Grafia, Issei said after processing the head maid's words. The last thing you said, was it serious? That's right, they were trained not only for combat, but also for work and home. However, the work of a Mao turns out to be exhausting in the end, Grafia said while pointing at the young women. So they were given more than one training to please a man's body, yours? Grafia said as all the girls became embarrassed by every word, not to mention Issei's reaction. At this point, he didn't know how he should react to this. Everything was new to him, so getting used to it quickly wasn't possible for him, especially when you knew there was a group of young women willing to do whatever you wanted. Naturally, they are all virgins, their virginity was reserved for you to take, so you shouldn't have to worry about someone else being in the same bed as them. Graphia's tranquility only left the brown-haired boy surprised. Knowing all this at once was not good for him, he needed a lot of time to reflect and assimilate everything. But with what had happened, that was not possible, so gathering all the calm he could, he simply let out a sigh. I see. In that case, I hope to count on your help in the future, Issei said with a smile, causing everyone to give a slight bow with a yes, in unison at the end. The duties of a Mao were tiring for anyone, even Issei knew it and had an idea to free himself from it. Which, if it worked, would let him instantly be free, which meant not only plenty of time, but he could also do whatever he wanted. I guess this has its advantages in the end, Issei thought as he heard a couple of footsteps approaching, which caught everyone's attention at the same time, causing each and every one of the young women to do another one of their bows, which warned Issei that the woman in front of him had some important status, so he looked at Grafia, who had also limited herself to bowing. I apologize for not seeing you, but I didn't expect you to come visit us, Grafia said as she looked at the woman, who smiled kindly. Zairama notified me a couple of hours ago that they managed to find the son of Lucifer, so I came to meet him in person, said the beautiful woman who turned to see the brown-haired man. Oh, so you are the second son of Lilith-sama and Lord Lucifer. That's right. I don't know what name they gave me the day I was born. That's why I used the one given to me by those who took care of me, Issei said while nodding towards the woman. They call me Issei, Hayate Issei, although technically the correct name would be Issei Lucifer. Wow, what a nice name, the woman said with a kind smile as she looked at the brunette from head to toe. Zairama mentioned something about a power check inside you. That's right, Scatnack is working on a signal that will allow me to use my power and Longuinus safely, Issei said while Grafia limited herself to observing the interaction between the two. To Longuinus? I think Zairama forgot to mention that part, the woman said with the same calm, only this one was mixed with some surprise. But to tell the truth, I don't think that's a bad thing for a demon, that is if we take into account that your brother's grandson has one of the same caliber. Her words surprised Issei, who without noticing had walked until he was in front of the woman. She looked at him without looking away, this because the brunette was not aware that the aura inside him had begun to leak around him. And even though it was a weak leak, the majority present could say with great certainty that the leaked aura was by far the most terrifying they had ever seen. So much so that some felt a slight dizziness, an act that Grafia did not miss. It seems that Zairama's suspicions are true. Only beings with enough mental and physical strength will be able to be in Issei-sama's presence, Grafia thought as she walked a couple of steps to be between both demons. Where Issei finally noticed that he had been moving without realizing it, which caused the aura to disappear. My brother's grandson has a Longuinus. That's new, Issei said before noticing that he had no idea who was in front of him. Certainly, said the woman who noticed Issei's slight bewilderment on her. Although before continuing I should introduce myself. It's most appropriate, Issei said with a little curiosity while Grafia stood next to the woman. Issei-sama, you mentioned to me before that you would like to have to thank my father for the kind of education I received, but I should not only thank him for this, but also this woman, Grafia said, causing Issei's surprise upon hearing it. Since it was she who trained me to be the woman I am now, so let me introduce you to my mentor. She made me what I am and I am truly grateful to her for that. The maid said with a smile as she looked at the woman, who returned the same kind smile. One that brought an equal smile to Grafia's face, before looking back at Issei and saying, This is Venelana Bale, my mentor in the days of my youth 500 years ago, Grafia said as Vanilla smiled at Issei. It's a pleasure to finally meet you, Venelana said as she took both of Issei's hands and said with a smile, My beloved Lord Lucifer.
Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.